So on note, I understand the registrar is trying to enter.
Well, we'll do the best we can. I made as light a request as I could. We have fire regulations. If people won't leave the room, others won't come in, we won't get other bills heard, and the day will go on and on.
So what I'm going to do now, Mr. Chairman, is I'm going to defer to my colleagues and then testify at 2 o'clock. I know that my colleagues do have other obligations at that time and will not be able to do that, but I have time to come back at that time. So I'm going back at 10:30. Okay. And Senator, I appreciate, we do appreciate your support. We want to be as accommodating as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You get credit.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for taking me out of turn. Members of the Committee on Transportation, I am here to express my strong support for House 3285, an act relative to safe driving. I think it's critical for all of us to keep in mind that at the beginning of 2013, I think a lot of us across this country thought that federal immigration reform would pass. We were hoping that federal immigration reform would pass and there would be the opportunity for undocumented immigrants, including those here in Massachusetts, for a path to citizenship. That clearly has not happened in Washington, D.C. And so, as our federal government has put up some obstacles to immigration reform, I think it's imperative and very important for us as state legislators, as residents of Massachusetts, to take action on state legislation that can better support immigrants in Massachusetts, including undocumented immigrants. The bill that's put forward for you today has been a bill that's been filed in previous sessions. It's clear from the number of individuals here in the room that the organizing around this bill has been much, much stronger this session, which I really commend all the advocates and residents who are in support of this bill for their advocacy. I am supporting this bill, Mr. Chairman, because first of all, it's a public safety measure. It's a public safety measure that will make sure that every single person who is driving on our roads is licensed, and make sure that every single person who is licensed has car insurance, and that's very, very important in case an auto accident happens, in case there's an interaction with a police officer, to make sure that every driver has a license and to making sure that every driver is insured. Now, the other part of it, and it's clearly reflected by many of the residents here in this room, is that this is a bill that's particularly important to immigrants and particularly important to undocumented immigrants. And I will just say, for a family that is here, that is looking to bring their son or daughter to the doctor's office, to go to the grocery store, to drive to work, the reality is in Massachusetts is that most people need a car and they need a driver's license in order to get to work, in order to bring their son or daughter to the doctor's office, in order to do the daily errands that we all take for granted. So this is an issue that's particularly important to the immigrant communities. And I'll just finish and say, in the district I represent, has a significant immigrant population, particularly Latino and Brazilian. And in my conversations with members of the Brazilian community, members of the different Latino communities, one of the realities that we have to face in Massachusetts, and it's very important that these are conversations I've had with immigrants in my district, whether those who are citizens, whether those who are legal permanent residents, those who are undocumented. The reality is in Massachusetts today, there does exist among some police officers racial profiling. And what that means is questions are asked of those, ask, what is your social security number? Are you here in this country legally? Where are you from? Questions that I personally don't think should be asked by police officers. The reality is, this is happening in Massachusetts. And what I would submit is it's much greater peace of mind and much better security for all residents of Massachusetts if those individuals who are undocumented at least have a driver's license to show their record, to show their driving record, to show that they participated in the state process, even as, yes, they're in violation of federal immigration law. So I would ask this committee to strongly consider this bill. Again, as you can see, reflected by the room here, there's an incredible amount of organizing around this room, incredible amount of advocacy for this bill, and I hope you take into consideration all the activity. Thank you very much for taking me out of turn.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. I don't know that there are questions from members of the community. No. Thank you. Good to see you. Always be a vet in my meeting. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Good afternoon, Chairman McGee and Chairman Strauss and honorable committee members. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of House Bill 3285, an act relative to safe driving. The mission of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation is to provide our nation's safest and most reliable transportation system in a way that strengthens our economy and quality of life. The Registry of Motor Vehicles has a key role in fulfilling this mission because it is the RMV's responsibility to ensure the safety of the operators and vehicles that travel on our roadways. An act relative to safe driving seeks to change the requirements for Massachusetts residents to obtain driver's licenses. Currently, to apply for a driver's license, applicants must provide a document providing date of birth, a document providing Massachusetts residency, a pre-existing document that contains the applicant's signature, either a Social Security number or a denial letter from the Social Security Administration confirming their ineligibility for a Social Security number along with evidence of an immigration visa. This safe driving bill would allow individuals to apply even if they do not possess a Social Security number. For many applicants, the Social Security number requirement is the obstacle that stands between them and the ability to drive as a lawful licensed operator. This legislation is about public safety and ensuring that the drivers on our roads have passed the test and have the qualifications to be safe drivers. Unfortunately, too many of our residents who are currently unable to obtain a driver's license make the decision to drive, whether to get to work or a doctor's appointment or to bring a child to school. An increase in educated and licensed drivers will, without a doubt, help decrease the number of accidents on our roads. A September 2012 study by the California DMV found that those who drive without a valid license are nearly 3 times more likely to cause a fatal crash. New Mexico began issuing licenses to residents without Social Security numbers in 2003, and since then has seen a 24% reduction in the number of uninsured motorists and in alcohol-related crashes, as well as 25% reduction in traffic fatalities. Under this bill, the RMV would require to have applicants without a Social Security number complete a driver education course, much like we do for our teen drivers today. This legislation would bring in more needed revenue too. For every new license added to the system, it would generate at least $100 per license, $30 for a permit fee, $20 for a road test, and $50 for a license fee. It is estimated that this could raise nearly $15 million in additional revenue. It would also bring in additional business to our driver ed schools. Many of them are small businesses. A safe driving bill will reduce the drain on law enforcement in the court system as fewer operating without a license cases would be introduced into the court system. These cases typically consume valuable criminal justice resources, including prosecutors juggling already heavy caseloads and court personnel facing the challenge of balancing full dockets to handle these cases that tend to be dismissed upon payment of court costs. These resources could be devoted to more serious criminal matters. A bill of this nature also offers collateral benefits to all Massachusetts motorists because it would increase the protections offered by compulsory motor vehicle insurance laws, where motorists would be protected from uninsured losses caused by unlicensed drivers, because unlicensed drivers are not able to obtain insurance. Currently, if those individuals without a license choose to drive and get into an accident, it is the insured driver, not the unlicensed driver, who now is faced with increased burden in the insurance claims process. And finally, by facilitating the licensing of more drivers, this legislation will increase access and opportunity for thousands of our families to education, health care, and provide a means of transportation during times of emergency. It is a small step that will give our residents who work hard, play by the rules, the opportunity to provide their families with a better future. The Patrick administration supports a safe driving bill that increases safety and opportunity for all of our residents and visitors, and we look forward to working with you on the specific language of the bill. Thank you once again for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you. I appreciate the time you've taken today from your new responsibility. Congratulations over at the registry. The critical agency that people don't think ever fully appreciate. So thank you for taking the job. For your testimony, are there any questions for members of the committee?
Two quick questions. Thank you, Madam Registrar. Number one, you talked about the goal of getting, obviously, unlicensed drivers off the road for insurance verifications. Currently, can you just give us a quick update where we are with the ex-registration situation? Because obviously that, many believe, is a loophole that allows someone who does not have a license to register a car in Massachusetts. And the second,
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that?
just where we are with the ex-registration situation.
Okay, so it's my understanding that we are complying with the 2013 law.
I'd like to have a follow-up discussion with you at some point, because it's
Okay.
my understanding that the administration is not complying with the law on that matter. We've had some correspondence back and forth with the previous registrar, I think, that bears that up. So I'd like to follow up, and I won't burden the committee right now
No,
with that issue.
I think the greeting cards have been exchanged on that issue.
Okay, and,
You'll follow up with each other later?
And I have a second question, Mr. Chairman.
About
Relative,
the bill?
absolutely, well, obviously, the other issue does go hand in hand with this issue. Regarding this legislation, if we pass this legislation, someone goes and has their driver education training, gets a license, what insurance step do they start out at?
Okay, so that's insurance, which is more of our MRB partners for that. I can't answer that, but I'd be happy to look at it.
In other words, will they start out at a neutral step, or will they start out the same way a teen driver starts out and have to prove their roadworthiness before they achieve that neutral step?
Okay, so then it would be based on your driving record, so it would be a new step.
Fair enough. Any questions? Any other members of the committee? And certainly the committee will be following up with you as well as
I'm
sending
happy to do that.
issues he's identified. Thank you both for being here.
For having me today.
Just to update everyone who's here, where we are, the roadmap, if you will, for the hearing. We have been taking some people out of order. The goal is to address the other bills besides safe driving and then return to safe driving as quickly as we can.
The people who are in this country illegally. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm the son of an immigrant. I have 12 brothers and sisters. My father immigrated here in England and raised us out of the state of Maryland. I also am not somebody who is anti-immigrant because I'm someone who has, as you know, Mr. Chairman, been worked with Congressman Barney Frank, Congressman Henry Hyde, and other members of Congress in Washington going back to 1999 on immigration reform. We are a country of immigrants, and I think every one of us want immigrants to have the opportunities to come to America and have the economic opportunities and all the comforts that come with being an American citizen. However, I think all of us also recognize that, and particularly you, Mr. Chairman, as a lawyer, recognize that the juris statute that stands before so many courthouses and the Supreme Court is symbolic of a woman holding the scales of justice and balance. But that statute also has on it the blindfold that represents that the laws should be equally applied to all. It's not meant to be a blindfold that says, for those where the laws are not convenient, we don't see it. Since when in our country do we say that we create laws to protect the framework of our Constitution and to protect the public safety of our citizens. And all of us who have been blessed to be able to serve the public took an oath of public trust to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth and the laws of the United States. And this bill would effectively suggest that for those who violate the law, that it doesn't matter. That you will be able to access the same privileges that those who abide by our laws would be able to access. And yes, I've heard the arguments that this will ensure that people will drive and have insurance, which has actually not been borne out in some of the states where they use that argument. In the state of New Mexico, they have the second highest uninsured rate in the nation. And it only makes sense that for people who are coming here who are of modest means, that they probably can't afford insurance. And also the fact that, not all, but those who have shown that they are willing to not abide by the laws by first coming here illegally, would therefore obey these laws around insurance. There was arguments about the fact that in Utah, for example, they gave out drivers privilege cards, and that would cut out on hit and runs. The hit and runs have doubled in the state of Utah since they've been giving those out. Again, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee, we are a country of laws, and our democracy is dependent, the framework of this democracy is dependent upon rules and laws that we follow. And if we begin to tell people that we'll make exceptions for any group, then we have to honestly ask ourselves, do the laws really matter? And doesn't it discourage the people, all the legal immigrants, the 5,000 who are waiting in lines across borders all over this world, who are waiting their turn? What message does it send to them about, should I really bother with all this? I don't think it's a good message for them. I don't think it's right, nor is it consistent with what our country was founded on. Lastly, in closing, if I may, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, I want to just speak about one community in Massachusetts, the town of Milford, who lost 3 members of their community to people who were here illegally, who were driving motor vehicles. And one of those individuals, whose funeral I attended, Matthew Denise, a young man who had great opportunities ahead of him, was snatched away from his family by a man who came here illegally, who was driving without a license. Oh, you could have given him a license. But the only thing that would have saved Matthew Denise, the only thing that would have saved Matthew Denise would have been if that man wasn't allowed to enter this country illegally. That would have saved him and saved his family the grief that they deal with every single day because someone decided they didn't want to obey the laws of the United States, came here, and now we're talking about the potential for others who come here to get the message that it really doesn't matter. We're going to create a law that will allow you now, even though you're here illegally, to have a privilege that really has been reserved for those who follow our laws. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Sheriff. Members of the committee, thank you again for coming in. Returning to the list, we were on House 30.
Board, members of the committee. I'm here today to testify on my bill, which you just mentioned, Senate 1648, an act to regulate the use of automatic license plate readers.
Bill, Representative Farr. Again, as chair, on behalf of the committee, I cannot thank the members of the public who be patient and we will still try and conduct ourselves as efficiently as we can, read all the matters that we need to today, and for that we need your cooperation. This, turn over to my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This has been a busy day in the House, and we appreciate very much the patience that you have shown to the many people who have come here to voice their opinion, whether through their presence or through testimony. If you think this is a crowded room, there are 3 or 4 roomfuls of people outside, wishing they could be inside this room. There's a lot of people here who have opinions about this bill. I come before you today to speak in support of H. 3285, an act relative to safe driving, which I filed with my co-sponsor, Senator Patricia Jalen. As sponsor of this bill, I ask that you carefully consider all of its merits and report it favorably out of committee. This is a bill about public safety, and this is a bill about fairness. We all know that roads are safer if the drivers on it are trained, licensed, and insured. Why do we have driver's license to begin with? You may know that driver's license began in this country in 1910 in the state of New York. They were only limited to chauffeurs. And over the next several years, because of the public outcry over the issue of public safety, state after state started to require licenses. And eventually those licenses, the granting of those licenses, included driver's tests to show the proficiency. When it comes to government, one of our most important things that we do is to address public safety. We have an obligation to keep the people of our state safe. I would like to give you a statistic. You heard something similar to this from the registrar who testified earlier. According to the AAA, an accident involving an unlicensed driver is 5 times more likely to be fatal. According to the AAA, an accident involving an unlicensed driver is 5 times more likely to be fatal. That is a jarring statistic. Now let's juxtapose that statistic with the fact that in our Commonwealth, we have a de facto policy. We have a de facto policy right now that allows a subset of our population to drive unlicensed, untrained, and uninsured. That's what we're doing right now. Obviously, that is making our roads less safe. Now, why do we do that? Honestly, let's be honest here. If the federal government had done its job to address comprehensive immigration reform, we would not be in this position. It is their failure that has put us in this position, and we keep holding off, waiting for the federal government to do its job. I don't think we can wait any longer. I think we need to take matters into our own hands and make sure that our roads are safer. H. 3285 proposes that all drivers in Massachusetts, regardless of immigration status, be required. Let's change the word allowed and use the word required to be trained, licensed, and insured. When we give out licenses for other things, we give out licenses to plumbers, and we give out licenses to psychologists, and we give out licenses to all manner of professions. Why do we give out licenses? Because they work in the public, and we're protecting the public good. And the license is for them to do their craft. A driver's license is so that we can show that somebody is trained and is competent in that endeavor. Now, a lot of you are thinking, but driver's licenses have another purpose, right? They have become our form of identification. Unlike in other countries, we don't have a national ID. Many other countries, there are national IDs or provincial IDs. We don't have that in this country. So it really has 2 purposes. Well, it's for this purpose, too, that we would prefer to have people to have identification. Wouldn't it be great if a police officer who has made a traffic stop and asked for someone's identification could have high confidence that that person is who or she says he is? We know that there is quite a cottage industry in the Commonwealth and in many other states for false identification. We know that to be true. And police officers have told us over and over again that resources are being wasted because they spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out if this person is who he or she says he is. We already know that our public safety resources are stretched very thin. Why are we adding this extra burden? These are the reasons I believe that this bill is about public safety. This bill is also about fairness. You know, I pay a lot of fees to the RMV. I have 2 teenage drivers, my husband and my household, that are drivers. So 4 drivers in the household. We pay for permit fees. We pay for licenses. We pay for registration. I paid a lot of money to get my kids trained to drive at driving school. We're paying all this money. Perhaps you are paying similar amounts of money. But by our de facto policies, we have a subset of our population that are riding for free. I don't think that's a good idea. Those licensing fees, all those RMV fees, a good portion of those go to pay for our roads and bridges and projects. Why shouldn't everybody who's taking to the roads have to pay their fair share of those? In many areas of the Commonwealth, we don't have public transportation options that are realistic. Certainly the Berkshires, where I represent, has very, very few options. We in the Berkshires have our fair share of immigrants, documented and undocumented. But we have more than our fair share of unlicensed drivers because they do not have the option to take public transportation. So I again tell you that this bill is about fairness. Let me tell you something the bill is not about. This bill is not about the eligibility to work. This bill is not about getting SNAP benefits. This bill is not about getting housing benefits. This bill is not about getting child care vouchers. A driver's license has never been used, can't be used now to gain any of those benefits, and that won't change by the passing of this bill. I'm going to close with a difficult topic to bring up. And I say this with an enormous amount of respect and sympathy. In the town of Milford in 2011, a life was tragically snuffed out in an automobile accident that not only plummeted a family into grief, but enraged a community. Just a couple of months after that terrible accident, in the town of Sheffield, 24-year-old Maura Banks Dobson was tragically killed in a similar accident. Both died as a result of a drunk driver. One of those drivers was from another state. One of those drivers was from another country. I am furious. I am frustrated that we have not been able to wipe out DUI deaths. But we cannot confuse the issue of ensuring that all drivers are licensed with the issue of drunk driving, which certainly needs to continue to be addressed. And I fully support all efforts to make stricter DUI legislation. So I will say to you in closing that this bill is about public safety and this bill is about fairness. We can pass this bill so that all drivers in Massachusetts are trained, are licensed, and eligible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm glad we waited this long because there's so many of you all here. What I wanted to say is that this bill is one that should bring together on common ground, and I do believe it can bring together on common ground people who have very different ideas about immigration. Immigration is not an issue we could deal with, actually, as a state legislature. But we can deal with some of the consequences, as the representative said, of inaction in Washington. I was on Fox TV talking about this bill, and I expected, being a prejudiced person and resorting to stereotypes, that I would receive a lot of negative phone calls and emails. The first one I got was from a police officer in one of my communities expressing his strong support and explained how bad it was that they often could not identify people correctly. Most of the people who commented, and there weren't a lot from my district, were in favor, but there were some who were opposed. And they were opposed because of incorrect information. And so let me just tell you what I told them. They said, we can't give driver's licenses to undocumented, well, they said illegal immigrants. Or they said, we can't give driver's licenses out. This is not about giving anybody anything. It is about requiring people to take driver's ed, to pass a driver's test, to pay registry fees, to register their cars, to insure their cars. In short, it requires them to do all the things, as the representative said, that we all do. It also makes sure that they can be identified. For example, if a first responder gets to an automobile accident, they can find out who's in the car. And if a police officer stops someone, they can identify them with search keys. And the last thing I would just say is that it is not about any of the things that people think it will qualify you for. It's not about benefits of any sort. It doesn't allow you to travel. It doesn't allow you to get in an airplane. It doesn't allow you to vote. It looks different. In the bill, it says it will look different. So you can't use it for any purpose except one, and that's driving. I hope you will seriously consider this bill because I think it can bring together people whose main concerns are public safety, who have differences about other issues.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions from members of the committee?
Quick question. So you said that one of the things was that it would require people to take driver's ed to get your license. You have to take a driver's ed class. Is that part of the bill?
Actually, I think it is just you have to pass the test.
I think we have it now that has been discussed of whether we can require it or not to take driver's ed. At this point, I think that language says that it's required to take the test, and there has been some discussion of whether we should add that part in or not, and we're open to that discussion.
So if you have opinions about that, share that.
Well, I guess what popped into my head was I was thinking that the community we're talking about, and I'll try not to stereotype, but I will generalize. I'm assuming that we're talking about a lower socioeconomic type of community. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that the community that we're talking about might be heavier into the socioeconomic,
Sure.
but it does span the spectrum.
And so the only reason I'm asking is I'm thinking if we're requiring taking the test or taking a driver's ed, is there a provision to pay for that? If we're talking about a lower socioeconomic class, are we willing to?
I would not be willing to entertain the idea that the state in any way supplement the driver's education, if that's the question you're asking.
Yeah, and that's about the roundabouts.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of that.
But, can I just add that the reason that it is important that they pass the test is that the rules, wherever they came from, they may have a driver's license in their own country. The rules here are different.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And frankly, it would not be my policy to address legislators testifying before the committee. And it was not my intent to address this particular bill, to be honest with you. But to invoke the memory of the incident that happened in the town of Milford, which is both my hometown and my community, part of the district that I represent. And one of the conflicts that I have, frankly, with this particular legislation is that it wouldn't have addressed the tragedy that happened in my community. Because the individual, as you know, is charged not with driving under the influence alone, but a much more serious crime because at the time of the actual collision, had the operator stopped, the young man would still be alive. And as we know, as that case moved forward, there was a question as to whether that individual was even competent to go to trial because of the total lack of understanding and ability to communicate in our language. So I don't think this bill would have made a single bit of difference to that incident. And that individual would have still been driving the street unlicensed.
And that's part of our problem, is that this will address some of the population. It will not stop those who want to drive, who may not be able to qualify for that training. They will continue to be on the road, and they will continue to do the damage that has been done. And I think that the effort to divorce this from immigration in total, while I wish we could do that, is something that can't be done. Because the fact of the matter is that it is a comprehensive and overall problem. Because as we enable the driving in a more sophisticated way, that driving takes people to jobs where they are working and not working on the roles of those employers, and thereby not contributing income taxes and other types of benefits to the community. So it's a comprehensive problem. And it becomes a problem for those of us in the communities that have been affected in the way, the very tragic way, in which my community has been affected, because it's hard to pull apart the different issues of the different parts of this issue in a way that will allow us to move forward in one area, but not in the other. And since I've come into this legislature, the very first piece of legislation I filed was one that sought to start a commission where we could work together to address issues comprehensively without being able to get the support of the more progressive people in this building who ought to support an effort to address it comprehensively, both the negative aspects and how we can take care of those aspects, as well as the positive ones. So invoking the memory of what took place in my community does not advance this legislation.
I'm going to have to cut it here. The goal of the hearing is not a preview for debate. So, if we could leave the questioning there, I supported some room here, obviously, because of the district touching issue.
I'll be very brief, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We do hear about the federal Real ID Act, the issue of having ID that actually is more secure. I think Massachusetts is one of those states that is sort of bypassing that. So it would seem to me that your legislation would in fact be dovetailing into the Real ID Act in some fashion, trying to separate out these two issues of identification and a license.
I think that, first of all, you bring up a really important point. It's a question that a lot of people have about the Real ID Act. We have sought legal opinion on this from both the administration and from advocates, and we are told consistently that this bill, the passage of this bill, would not affect our standing on Real ID, whether to help it or to hurt it. We are not in compliance now, and we will not be if we pass it. Now, some people will argue that if more people who are not documented get licenses, then we will kind of have, a step in the right direction if Massachusetts decides they would like to go with Real ID. I'm not an expert at that. We do have lawyers that will be testifying later and might be able to answer that question a little better.
Okay. Thank you
I
both.
really do appreciate your time and your patience on this matter, Mr. Chair.
No problem. We're going to allow the other people so they can, there's fire regulations haven't been able to join us, so I think, just so everyone else in the room knows that, we'll allow, I'm pretty sure everybody wants to be hearing this bill to benefit from that. As I indicated, just to give people a continuing update, we do take colleagues out of turn on these issues. I also wanted to indicate that as we start out on the safe driving bill, at different points, because there are still some people on a couple of other bills, but I'm trying to balance this. Appreciate everyone's understanding. We will go back to other bills, so we can remove different bills almost simultaneously, and appreciate everyone's consideration. For those of you also who this may be a relatively new process to attend one of these hearings, unlike the kinds of hearings that occur at the congressional level, where they control exactly who testifies and for how long, we take the extra step, and as you can see, it takes more time, takes more effort on everybody's part, the public to participate. So In order to do that, everyone has to maintain their patience, and I thank you again. I see colleagues of mine, I don't know whether you want to come individually or Lieutenant Cole, just because you're in front, however you want to proceed on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable members, we are actually going to be very brief, so don't get scared of the spoilers here. I very much appreciate the opportunity to testify very briefly in opposition to this bill. I do appreciate the fact that people want to make our streets safer. However, I do not believe that this bill does make our streets safer. I think what it does is it encourages people who are already breaking the law to continue to break the law here in Massachusetts. And it also encourages people who are breaking the law in other states to come to Massachusetts to get an ID, to get a government ID. And I do not see a requirement in this bill that you must reside in Massachusetts for any particular length of time in order to be eligible for a driver's license in this bill either. And I think that is of great concern. So anyone can walk over the border on day one and get a license. It also opens the floodgates for people who enter this country illegally. And what I see in this bill also is that it gives authority to the registrar to prescribe by regulations a required driver's training program, but it doesn't say that she must do that, and I think that's concerning. That language is concerning as well. The family of Matthew Denise is opposed to this bill. You've already heard they do not feel it will make our streets safer, and they do not feel it would have saved their son either. I think what we need to focus on is fixing and enforcing our immigration laws so that people who want to be productive citizens can come here legally. Getting around our laws isn't going to make us safer, but enforcing our laws will make us safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and all members of the committee for taking me out of turn. I will be brief because I realize so many people are waiting to testify. So I am here just to raise some questions that I have regarding House Bill 3285 for two reasons. The first being, it seems contradictory to me to grant driver's licenses to people who have immigrated here illegally, which in itself is breaking the law. And by the same token, citizens of the Commonwealth who are in possession of driver's licenses have this privilege revoked when they are found to have broken the law. By not paying fines they are responsible for, driving while intoxicated, or other such offenses. So why now should one group breaking the law be rewarded with driver's licenses while another group has their driver's licenses used as leverage to punish them for committing a crime? And secondly, it is my opinion that this bill is a Band-Aid to cover a very serious underlying problem, which is our broken immigration system. Why don't we redirect our efforts towards making it possible for the some 300,000 immigrants in the state who are eligible to become citizens? A bill such as this one only temporarily codifies the problem, while further dividing the people of our Commonwealth and providing an avenue for people to harbor resentment towards those just trying to get to work and get their children to school. Before this bill leaves this committee, I would ask that the members instead become familiar with House Bill 1290, an act relative to naturalization proceedings. This bill would authorize state courts to process applicants based on criteria required for citizenship. Currently, due to the underfunding of the Department of Immigration and Refugees by both state and federal budgets, only 1,500 of the state's 300,000 unnaturalized residents are able to be processed. This bill would seek to return processing to the state courts, which was the mechanism in place prior to the federal takeover of the process and subsequent underfunding. Instead of trying to take this problem on one issue at a time, I hope this body may work towards a solution to the entire issue at hand and allow people who come here in search of a better life to pursue that here in this great state. So thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and colleagues. I come here today in opposition of this bill that is before you. Some of you may have heard us say this before, but nearly $2 billion annually is spent in this Commonwealth in benefits for those that don't qualify. Many of those are people who are in this country illegally. And what I think this bill will do is further make Massachusetts a magnet. Further invite people who are in this country illegally to come to Massachusetts, to seek refuge, to seek benefits, and to take advantage of what I remember from my driving in days, called the license of privilege in the Commonwealth. It is not a right to drive, it is a privilege to drive. And here we are providing a privilege to those who are legally here in this Commonwealth. We all know the budget challenges that we have. We know that local aid has been cut by hundreds of millions of dollars from previous levels. We want to provide more money for education, provide for our cities and towns. And yet, this would be a reason that more resources will be drained. There will be more people coming to Massachusetts. And in regards to Real ID, we already know that Massachusetts is behind the ball on that. What we know is the consequence of Massachusetts not complying, residents will not be able to use their driver's license to get on a plane, to get in a federal building. In lieu of a national ID, the driver's license in this country essentially is that mechanism that we use as our primary identification. To add a complication to that, to give identification to those who are illegally here, allows our ID to essentially mean nothing. It becomes a photo ID that allows those who are illegally here to hide into society with those who are illegally here. And it's a huge problem, as we've heard earlier testimony, not just on our roads, but in our economy, in our schools, is a major issue, and we should not be creating a bigger magnet. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Once again, thanks for taking us out of order. I really appreciate it. And I'll be brief. There's section 1 of the bill, the second paragraph, it specifically says, nothing in this section shall permit the registrar to deny a license to operate motor vehicles or learner's permit application based on a failure by the Massachusetts residents ineligible for a social security number or to provide a social security number or evidence of immigration status. Why not everything else? Why not extend it? Why not say if you want to open a business in Massachusetts, you don't need a social security number. You want to apply for a bank loan? No social security numbers matter. You want to go to college? Forget it. You don't need a social security. Why have social security numbers at all? Why have any rules? Why have any rules? We have rules in this Commonwealth and we have rules in this country that people are supposed to follow. And the logic that we're supposed to buy into today is this is going to make our roads safer. So let me see if I follow that logic. We've got people who are not following our rules to begin with, and now we're going to train them on how to drive, and all of a sudden they're going to follow those rules. I mean, that logic just doesn't follow. So I would urge this committee, before you take this bill and send it to the House floor, that we really take a good hard look at just what we are doing. And what is the message to children, to teenagers? Rules don't matter. Well, I'm going to tell you, we need to make sure that people understand that rules do matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now,
so we will proceed. We did have, and we'll work through as we can. We did at earlier times have sign-in sheets. Again, looking for everyone's cooperation for people wanting to testify. One thing that we will try and do here is to also reflect the testimony that we have. If there are people on one side or another, we'll try and go back and forth as we call people up, so that there is that presented or that exists in the presentation. So the first name I have is Mark Fisher. Front row, as a first on the list. Thank you, sir, and you may proceed.
Chairman Strauss and Chairman McGee and other members of the committee, thank you. My name is Mark Fisher, I'm a resident of Shrewsbury, and I come here to speak in opposition to House Bill 3285. Let's not confuse this with something difficult. Illegal immigration is illegal. When you were elected, you took an oath to uphold the law. And yet this bill is a slap in the face of immigrants who've come here legally who've stood in line, who've waited their turn, who've played by the rules, who've obeyed the law. They've obeyed the law. They've given us a wonderful and great example to follow. I ask you to follow their example, uphold the law, and do your job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any questions, members of the committee? None. Next, we have Anthony DeRujo.
Outside, with the management, I don't think it's that.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, can I just say one thing? Folks, this will be the last time I direct to this particular statement, okay? No cheering, jeering of anyone, regardless of what side of the issue that you're on, okay? I don't care if you're walking out the door, okay? Keep your responses to yourself, not in this room. This will be the last time. Any outburst, okay, of any sort, and you will be asked to leave. You've been extremely patient and respectful. Continue that, and we'll all get through this. Thank you.
Thank you. I would urge if somebody knows Mr. Rujo, and they can let him know, and I'll keep going on the list, but if he comes back and wait, we'll get back to him. Ted Tripp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here in opposition to 3285. This bill would prevent the registry from using a lack of social security number or proof of immigration status from denying someone a license. That means other identification would have to be used. A utility bill, room rental receipt, school transcript, other ID. How would the registry know who that person really is? The clerks are not detectives and would be hard-pressed to make a positive identification. What's to prevent a convicted pedophile or level 3 sex offender or other felon from changing his name and then applying for a new license? With that new license, this person can then start a new life with no criminal background. If he wants to get a job involving or around children, a Corey check would show a clean slate. If stopped for a traffic violation, a police background check would show no prior criminal activity. How does this make the citizens of Massachusetts any safer? I would like to propose a sister bill if you think this safe driving bill is such a good bill. I'm going to call my new bill an act relative to gun safety. I propose we issue a gun license to those who do not have a social security number nor can prove immigration status. Forget another current standard firearms application requirement too, like have you ever used or been known by another name? Do you think this bill would make guns safer or citizens safer from gun violence? I think most people would answer no to this. Just as the answer to the question of does the safe driving bill make us any safer? The answer to that is no as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Any questions from members of the committee? None. Thank you again. Next on the list for testifying is Marilyn Luther.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Marilyn Luther. I live in Haverhill. I'm here to testify against passage of S3285. This bill will do nothing to make the roads safer for drivers. Other states have given licenses to people that are here illegally, but these efforts did not result in fewer accidents, more licensed drivers, more insured drivers, or safer drivers. In New Mexico, after relicensing, the number of fatalities and accidents actually increased. In California, which doesn't require a license to get insurance, the number of uninsured is less than 25%. Additionally, why would you think that giving someone a license is going to make them safer drivers? Why would someone who broke the law to come into this country bother to get a license. We have seen they continue to drive unlicensed and uninsured, and they get away with it, while those of us that are citizens that live here have to pay a price. Issuing licenses will also lead to more fraud. There is no way the RMV can ensure the accuracy of documents that will be provided. Many have fake documentation. A utility bill or lease is not any kind of identification. If this bill passes, this Commonwealth will become a magnet for others to come here. This driver's license will eventually provide them with the ability to vote and collect benefits for which they are not eligible, all paid for by the taxpayers in this Commonwealth. Instead, we should enforce immigration laws. We should work with ICE to increase deportations, particularly criminals and reckless drivers. There are plenty of citizens out here that need jobs. They don't need to be filled by people that are here illegally. This country has welcomed legal immigration since its inception. As we have no common ethnicity or religion, the only thing that has kept us united is a common language and rules of law. The government, in providing translators and printing information in 30-plus languages, have effectively said we don't need a common language. This bill is saying that people can now ignore the laws. You don't have the right to pick and choose those laws that you either support or oppose. A law is a law. If the bill is passed, it will not make the roads safer, and to reiterate, it will legitimize and encourage lawless behavior. Public officials are elected by the citizens to pass bills for the benefit and protection of the citizenry. This bill condones and rewards illegal behavior at the expense of its citizens. I urge you to let this bill die in committee. Thank you for your time.
Carlos Cesar. And as we get started, is Mr. Arugio coming back in the room or not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the board, for this opportunity to speak about this issue that's been bothering me for years. My name is Carlos Cesar. I'm the president of 16 neighborhoods, one of the 16 neighborhoods in the city of Fall River. I have helped a lot of people on this situation with no drive license. In my neighborhood, we have hundreds of people on this situation. In my opinion, this has nothing to do with people being legal or illegal on this country. I think this has to do with us collecting more money in tax. This is definitely a safety issue. Some states see this as a way to raise millions of dollars. Starting in January of next year, a person can drive from my city 45 minutes and get their driver's license in the state of Connecticut. That means that they will get their license there, they leave the money there, they drive in our city, they drive on our state, and we don't collect $1 from those drive licenses. I never saw so many out-of-state plates like now, driving in my city and other states. Can we connect that the reason that we don't, because we don't allow them to have state drive licenses? Do you know they run away from crashes not because they don't have a registered car or they don't have insurance? They walk away from a crash because they don't have a drive license that costs $65 when they pay thousands of dollars for insurance. Yes, it's a safety issue. When the police stops a car, a person with no drive license on our city, they tell them to walk and give them a day in court. Do you know, because we don't have that person identification, we could be sending home a criminal? I guess, yeah, and you know how they get to court. Exactly, I don't have to tell you that. They pay $100 in courts and they send them home. Before, when they had a drive license, and this is a study that I did in a week, I got 45 names. 80% of the names on this list are living in this country for 20 years and more. So they are driving with the state's drive license. They cannot renew them now. I have people that take their kids on vacation because they don't have an ID now. They cannot take their kids on vacation no more. They don't even can take their kids with American citizens on their field trips from school. My friends, I'm going to add with this. For those that are opposed to this bill, give me a different bill. I have nothing against deport them all. But let's stop playing games. Let's resolve this problem. Either we give them away so we know who they are and where they live, or we deport them all. I have no problem with that. But for us to keep playing this game every 2 years or every 4 years when we have a country election, I think that's not fair for us, the illegals, and for them, that's still illegal. Thank you, Lamar.
Thank you, sir. Next on the list, Len Clausen.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this time, honorable panel, committee. My name is Glenn Foster. I'm a police sergeant in the city of Fitchburg, Mass. I'm here on the behest of Mayor Lisa Long from the city of Fitchburg. And I share some values and vision of our community, which is about 28% minority. About a little bit less percentage lives out of below the poverty line. And we have our challenges, but we have a great population of a great group of people who simply want to assimilate into our country. As we all sit here today, we likely have come from an immigrant family at one point. I can say personally, I'm 4 generations American. At one point, Ellis Island had somebody related to me coming over the ocean from Italy. So it's a great honor and a privilege to be able to talk to you today in support of the bill as a police officer and as a representative of the city of Fitchburg. I join and support Representative Tricia Fowley-Bouyer's statement that says people in law enforcement often want to know the person that they are talking with or dealing with, and when they have that confidence that the form of identification that they have is legitimate, it adds to that reduction of fear. As a police officer for 30 years, and many of those spent on the street in minority communities, I can tell you that the fear is on both sides. That the fear of a police officer by an individual who may have come from a country who has a substantially different expectation of law enforcement because they have no other experience but what they had experienced in their home country can be very fearful for them. And on the other side, as a patrol officer or a police officer, or a supervisor, commander, when you're dealing with someone you don't know who they are, and if they run from the scene after doing something terrible, you have no idea who you're looking for. This is at least one step in the right direction. Now, I'm not here to negate the thoughts and the opinions of others. I am simply here to support the idea that we currently have nothing, and we would love something. I'm also available if someone wants to talk about law enforcement and license plate readers and all that other stuff. But it was an eye-opening experience to come here today and listen to some of the other legislation. And it was heartwarming to see so many people that I know are good people absolutely occupy this building today in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. Any questions, members of the committee? None, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
For your testimony. I see one of our colleagues who joined us again, and Provo, thank you for your patience. You come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, staff. I appreciate your you're taking me out of order, but I take the hint, and I plan to be very brief. I'm Denise Provo. I represent the city of Somerville. I support the safe driving bill. My mayor would like you to know that he supports the safe driving bill, Mayor Joseph Curtatone, and our chief of police, Charlie Femino, supports the safe driving bill, as did our previous chief of police, Tom Pasquarello. I think that the public health and public safety are the most important responsibilities of any government, and for the same reason that we require all children in the public schools to be vaccinated against contagious diseases, we should require that all the people driving on our roads have been taken a driving exam and test, and that they have licenses. That simple. As I said earlier, I would like to mention another bill, which is Senate 1664, of which I am co-sponsor, and I see that the main sponsor is out of the room again. Basically, I agree with what he said. These aerial devices, drones as they're commonly called, should be regulated. Not that long ago we would have thought it was science fiction that anyone should be using such devices, but since they are requiring that they not have weapons, that a warrant be used if law enforcement is going to employ these devices, and that it be based on probable cause and not to spy on private people. All of these are important protections that should be in place, and even though they are unmanned, they are before transportation, and certainly they transport information, and that should be subject to your control. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate your coming in. And actually, the transition was a good one. As I indicated earlier, I wanted to, at different points, try and get to some of the other bills that remain, and that next one was to be Senate 1664, Senator Haley's bill. And then we have a couple of witnesses who come forward. We'll briefly cover that bill again and then get back to safe driving. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Susan McLeod.
To safe driving bill. Next on the list, I apologize if I mispronounce your first name, Valdirine Oliveira. Julia Coleri.
Good afternoon, Chairman McGee, Chairman Strauss, and honorable members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Julia Kohler. I'm a specialist in pediatric infectious disease at Boston Children's Hospital and an assistant professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. I have a clinic at the hospital, and patients are referred from all over the Commonwealth with difficult infections to see me. I have a number of patients from small towns in Massachusetts whose parents I happen to know are undocumented, very decent, very hardworking people, many times. So how can their parents take these children to see me in clinic? They have to drive. And as we're discussing here, current law does not allow them to get a driver's license. So, for example, I first saw a little girl from New Bedford when she was 4 months old. She had anemia, she had some liver problems, and she was sent to me because we found that she had a virus that can be acquired before birth sometimes. So I was following her. Some of her problems were improving, but we had to keep checking her because we know that this virus can cause hearing loss. Very important to detect early in a baby. So sure enough, after about 4 months, suddenly she had moderate hearing loss in one ear and severe hearing loss in the other. There is a medication for this virus, but it has a lot of side effects, so you have to monitor very carefully when you're giving this medication. So the little girl, the baby girl, had to come to clinic frequently, and every time she came to clinic, basically her father was exposing himself to arrest and deportation. So after the first 6 weeks of giving her this medication, the audiologist called me very excited and said, her hearing loss is better, it's moderate, it's only moderate, and it's mild in one ear. So we were all extremely happy and excited, and so this medication was continued for another 6 weeks. At the end of those 12 weeks, her hearing had completely normalized. Now, her mother is a very good, organized, wonderful mother. She kept track of all the clinic appointments. She kept track of everything else she needed to do. So she brought the patient every appointment. And at this point, I'm happy to report the little girl is almost 3 years old. She's doing wonderfully. And that's because she has great parents who take wonderful care of her. But according to Massachusetts law, her parents are lawbreakers. And I would like to remind you that there are many, many little girls and boys like her in the state, the vast majority of whom are United States citizens. So, in my opinion, this law should change. These hardworking families should be able to take their children to their medical appointments without fear of breaking up the family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I got your name wrong. I misread the comment at the end.
That's okay. It's right here.
I apologize. I thank you for your patience. As people will have seen, my colleagues departed, not out of rudeness, but there's a vote on the measure that we're dealing with today, so I have to leave. So we'll have just a 2 or 3 minute break. I will move as fast as I physically can and come back and resume the hearing. Thank you. Next name on the list, it's only a single name. As best I can read the handwriting, Karina.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karina Ferreira, and I come to the United States 14 years ago, the day after I married with my husband. And so 3 months later, my visa got expired, and right now I am illegal. So I am not allowed to have a driver license. 3 years later, I had my first son, and now we have 3 beautiful boys with 11, 8, and 5 years old. And they do a lot of sports. They like sports. They play basketball, football, they play soccer. And I have to do all those things with my kids. Walking or paying for a taxi, because I am not allowed to have a driver license. And it's really hard in the winter time when it's cold, on summer. And sometimes they cry, they don't want to go to school when it's too cold. And I ask to other parents to come to give me a ride for my kids. And it's hard. I try to do the best I can. I work really hard for my community. I work in my kids' school every single day. I work in the library, in the school library. We paint the walls in the school. We work hard for the community, but we are not allowed to get a driver license. I pay my taxes like everybody here. Because I am illegal doesn't mean I don't pay. I have my tax ID number to pay every single year like everybody. but I am not allowed to drive. And I don't think that's fair. Probably my opinion doesn't count, but if we pass this bill, it's not gonna fix the problem we have right now, but it's gonna help my family a lot. It's gonna change my life and my kids' life. My kids, they are playing in the travel teams, and I need to ask other parents to take them to the games every single weekend, because I am not allowed to drive. And when they ask me, I tell them because I am afraid to drive. And my 11-year-old boy, 2 months ago, he told me, "Why you don't get a therapy, Mommy, so that way you can drive?" Because I am so embarrassed all the time, because all my friends, the parents, they drive and we don't have a car. That's break my heart. And if the only thing I gonna ask everybody here is have take 2 minutes or 5 minutes or the time you guys can to think about if you have a kids, how hard your life can be. If you do all the things you do with your kids every single day, walking, or you have to spend a lot. I spend more than $500 a month paying taxes. And when I go to the bed every single night, I think about how about if I can save that $500 every month for my kids' college, for my kids' education. It's going to be awesome for me. It's going to be awesome for my kids. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Any questions, members of the committee? John, next person signed in, as Jennifer.
The reason I'm here is I'm a single mom, mom of 4 kids, 14, 11, 7, and 3 years old. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And I've been having a very hard time in my family. Because like the other person they specified, they said my kids, they do a lot of sports. And I've been so many times have traveled to take them to school, take them to play the sports. And I remember a few times used to walk to the store to get a medication for my kids. Like nighttime, walking in the snow, cold weather, and because I don't have a driver's license. If can you please can do us a favor to give us a driver's license and change us life. And I get so sad when my kids, they want to go some places, at least to have a little fun, but I can't take him anywhere. Most of the time I have to keep him at home. If I want to go somewhere, I have to walk with him. I have a 3-year-old. It's so hard for me to take him all of them. And so that's why I'm here, to tell you guys, please think about, because have children and don't drive is a very difficult thing. And that's all. I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Any questions? Seeing none, members of the committee. As I indicated earlier, we would be presenting, as I see in the sign-up list, people on different sides of the issue. So at this point, we'll call on Chip Faulkner.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. I want to identify myself first. I'm the Associate Director of Citizens for Limited Taxation. And I'm looking at this on a little different perspective from taxes and spending and revenues. And I'm worried more about, if this law came into effect, of the surge in population from illegal aliens pouring into Massachusetts. And in fact, the FBI had a study where they showed in Washington State, when they approved this type of legislation, they had a tremendous surge in illegal aliens coming into the state and trying to get getting driver's licenses. And we're worried also because if they come in, this state has a wide array of benefits, and illegals, according to one group I work with, the illegal benefit, or the benefits come to about $1.8 billion. Now, the other thing I want to point out is 2 years ago, in February of 2012, I went with the Center for Immigration Studies to look along the border from Yuma, Arizona, east. And we did that for a full week. The following year, we did the same thing along the Rio Grande River in Texas. The reason I'm bringing all this up is when we spent the whole week going along these borders in 2 weeks in 2 different states, the borders were not being enforced. There were numerous cases where we could look down the Rio Grande River for a mile or two, and there was no fences, no border patrol, no nothing. And the Rio Grande River, by the way, I thought it was a fairly big river. At some points, it's about 100 feet across, and it's shallow, so it's easily crossable. And then from that experience, from those 2 weeks out in those 2 different states, I'm saying, there's no enforcement. And I know Janet Napolitano said, our borders are being enforced, or I forget the exact quote, but she was widely derided on it because they're not. Sure, there's been a big increase in border patrol and the money allocated in some fences, but I'm just looking from that experience. I'm bringing it back to Massachusetts, and I'm saying, my God, if we allow this, they're going to keep coming across the border, they're going to come into the state, and we can't afford it. And the taxes are already high here, 4th highest per capita in the country. We're still, as you know, Mr. Chairman, CL2 is trying to get back to the 5% income tax rate, and back to sales tax to 5. That's not going to happen if you get legislation like this passing and added costs, and the state needs more revenue.
Thank you for coming in. You have your anecdotal observations. Mine. I was in Southwest Texas last April at the Rio Grande, and twice I was detained by immigration. So,
What were you carrying, Mr. Chairman?
Driving through, and U.S. immigration was frequently in observation where I was in Southwest Texas. So,
well, I mean, at some point.
So I'll say the anecdotes are the anecdotes, but as to the points of the legislation, I do appreciate your coming in, and I just point to something a number of witnesses on both sides of the issue have said, which is it's a tough issue to deal with either way until Washington does, on a national basis, deal with the immigration issue. And otherwise, states are left to deal with it as best they can.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to indicate that Border Patrol wasn't doing a good job. A lot of them were very competent and efficient, but they were being overwhelmed in many areas. The area from Yuma, about 100 miles east, had something like 8 times the Border Patrol they had 10 or 15 years ago. And it was still a problem. But thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, just one quick question. You cited a 1.8 billion number, and I just want to work backwards and find the citation.
Yeah, this was from the Federation for American Immigration Reform. I called them up, and they gave me, you could go state by state, and they gave me the numbers and the cost of Massachusetts, and they detail it. The 1.86 billion is in about 7 different major categories.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Jose Ventura.
Ventura, and I'm a member of CCT in New Bedford.
Yo vengo representando a la comunidad hispana e inmigrante de New Bedford.
I am representing the Hispanic community, the immigrant Hispanic community in New Bedford.
El motivo que estamos aquí por un punto, por la licencia. Este bill es muy importante para nosotros que apruebe ese bill, porque nosotros tenemos una gran necesidad de poder transportarnos.
If you pass this bill, it's a great thing for us because we have a great need as a community, a great need of moving around.
Muchos de nosotros no contamos con el servicio público de transporte.
Many of us don't have the public transportation system in our cities.
Unos trabajamos en el campo, otros en otro sitio de trabajo.
Some of us are working in the fields or other places.
Y al no tener una licencia, no podemos tampoco tener un vehículo.
And since we don't have a license, we do not have a vehicle.
Y también hay una necesidad de, como padres de familia, llevar a los niños a la clínica, a la escuela, babysit, a sala de emergencia.
As parents, we also have the need to travel with our kids or bring them to their medical appointments, their babysitters, or even the emergency rooms.
Y también, y al caminar en la calle, somos vulnerables a ser atacados por el crimen organizado.
And some of us are easy targets to just be attacked by some other people.
En mi persona, en el 2011 yo fui atacado en la calle.
Myself, in 2011, I was attacked when I was walking on the streets.
Y unos días después de ese día, también en horas de la madrugada yo iba caminando en la calle para el trabajo.
A couple of days later, after that attack, I was also walking on the streets, walking to my job.
Y cuando vi que habían dos personas siguiéndome, tratando de asaltarme, entonces yo corrí todo lo que pude para escapar de ese.
And I was able to perceive that there were two people following me, and they were trying to steal stuff from me, so I started running.
Y corrí como a 2 o 3 cuadras y logré escapar de esa persona.
I was able to run 2 or 3 blocks away from these people, and I was able to escape from them.
Y después de eso, yo como quedé con miedo de caminar en la calle.
After that, I was afraid to walk on the streets.
Yo pagaba taxi, me salía muy caro, pagaba taxi todos los días.
I had to pay a taxi every day, which became a lot of, very expensive for me.
Y como medida, yo compré un carro, me arriesgué a manejar sin licencia.
And obviously, I took the risk to buy a car and drive without a license.
Y un día un policía me vio con la cara de hispano, él me paró, me pidió la licencia y al no tener la licencia él me arrestó.
And so one day I was stopped by a police officer who I believe just stopped me because of the way I look, like a Hispanic person, and he arrested me.
Me quitó el carro, me dio corte, pagué multa.
He took my car away, I had to go to court, and I had to pay a penalty.
Y todo por no tener una licencia y todo por la necesidad de transportarnos y evitar ser atacados en la calle.
And all of that as a consequence of me not having a car, not having a license, and not feeling free to walk on the streets.
Y eso yo no lo digo solo por mí, lo digo por toda la comunidad, porque yo no soy el único el ser víctimas en la calle, no soy el único que sufre de ataques, y además de eso, en temporadas de invierno, sabemos que el frío llega hasta 20 grados bajo cero.
And I'm not the...
Beyond the 3 minutes, so I'm asking you to conclude with the motion.
Okay. Entonces para nosotros es muy importante que este bill pase y que apruebe este bill.
So it is very important for us to pass this bill and just to make it happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, apologize if I mispronounced the last last name Chuck Davis.
Right here.
How badly did I get your name?
What's that?
How badly did I get your name?
Kunowicz. It's all right. I say it differently each day myself.
Maybe tomorrow I will be.
That's true. Thank you, everyone, for having this hearing. Today actually reminds me, I think I got to get my car registered. But having said that, let's talk truths. Today I have 3 of them. Truism 1, most people prefer to live in a relatively safe world. Truism 2, untested and therefore unlicensed drivers risk public safety. The spawn of these 2 truths is a bill called the Safe Drivers Bill, or officially, an act relative to safe driving. That's a great name, and it would seem to sum it all up. After all, who in their right mind would argue against creating safe drivers? But it is precisely because I am of sound mind that I must argue against this bill. This bill is seductive only if you read it real fast and don't think about what it says. The siren song playing here is the sales pitch about improving safety, yet there is not one provision in this bill that addresses road safety. It does, however, make it easier to be a criminal, regardless of being born here or not. Can't or don't want to show your social security number or immigration status? This bill says no problem. Remember back when the pitch for homeownership was, remember how risky mortgages were granted, how they did that? They did it by avoiding fundamental questions like, can you verify your income? Well, the question that this bill seeks to avoid is, can you prove that you are who you say you are? Like this bill, the pharmaceutical drug companies pitch their drugs as the solution, but at least at the end of the ad, they speak about the side effects that maim and kill. The sponsors of the Safe Driving Bill do not talk about the side effects and the complications of their bill. So by leaving us to only be able to use our own critical thinking, it becomes obvious that a driver's license isn't just about driving. It's identification that gets you into places and situations where security and identification matter. It's like getting a job, opening a bank account, boarding a plane. This bill is a reckless giveaway of a privilege. And remember, driving is a privilege, not a right. This is such a reckless giveaway that this bill makes it even easier for anyone, and I do mean anyone, legal or not, to get multiple licenses, which invites all kinds of fraud and identity concealment. Since providing any kind of public safety is just an illusion in this bill, it would be more appropriate to name this bill a bill to encourage identity theft and crime. It is no secret that it's incredibly expensive to legally drive here. Does anyone really believe that an exploited group of people working for substandard wages can afford the cost to do it right, like buying liability insurance? Finally, truism number 3. Just because something feels good, sometimes you still should not do it. And this is one of those times. Please do not support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your participation. Any questions? Thank you again. Just briefly to conclude another bill, Senate 1723 by Mr. Timothy. I think we had someone sign it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your patience. To the Safe Driving Bill. Next on the list, I have Carly McLean. She's off. Okay. Miguel Leal.
First of all, I want to thank for your time and appreciate everything you guys are trying to do here. I'm a veteran of 8 years. I served during Iraq Freedom. I'm not original from this country. Actually, I immigrated here when I was 10 years old from Cuba. And to many, that is the right way to get here. It was not the right way. It was the risky way. It was the way that we have to leave, and there was no other way. I am extremely proud for this country.
I cannot stress that as much as joining the service and fighting in time of war. And I live here in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. I work with a community of immigrants, not illegal immigrants, who immigrated here looking for the right. But not the right for escaping whatever they left behind, but the right to a better life for the kids. And I have to say that, as an example here, I have two of my community members who have suffered what it is to not have a license and being stopped and taken away, almost being stripped away from their community, from their family, after being here longer than what I have. I have to say that this bill will not give anybody privileges over food stamps or who gets unemployment. It will just give the chance for people to have more sanity in their life. People are going crazy just because they have to drive without a license, something that they don't want to do. Not that they want to do it, they want to break the law, it's just that there's no other way for them to survive. This country is a country that was built on opening the doors to everybody who came here. We fight every day for that reason. We go to war to protect that right, so this country can stay the same as it was before. So we are nobody to tell who can stay and who cannot stay. There's no right way to come to this country. It's just the only way to survive, to come here, to raise your kids, something that I do every day. My wife isn't illegal, like you like to say. I prefer to say she didn't have the same chance as I did. My wife's family doesn't have the same chances as I did. But then again, they pay more taxes than what I do. They pay more taxes. They work even harder than me, just because they're here to raise a family. So their kids don't have to go through the same struggles that they would have to go back at home. My mother brought me here, she almost lost her life, so I will have the same right. Now I fight so their kids can have the same right, so they can grow in a safe area, so they can have a future, so they can actually be part of something bigger than what they are. And I always believe that this country will give them that. I do appreciate everything that you guys are doing for us, and I do know that this bill will not fix all the problems that we have in this state, but will actually make it better. It will be the first steps that we need to open the doors for a better state, for a better community, for a safer community, in which that's all we want. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say don't stop, but just thank you for your service, your passion.
Sir, I did not serve to get thank you. I served because this country needed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Joyce Paul?
Joyce Paul left. Well, is it William Joyce or is that somebody else?
Joyce Paul, sorry. Again, I blame it on handwriting, but Peter Skolarin? Well, I feel badly. What did I do to your name?
No, it's good. Same as others, yeah. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Peter Skolarik, and thank you for trying my name anyway. It's a tough one. I live in Watertown, and I've already called my representative, Hecht, and Senator Brownsberger about this topic, and I appreciate the cordiality of their staff. Regular folks in Watertown, which I'm a part, are extremely disappointed in the Senator's support of H. 3285 bill. As a Watertown resident, concerned citizen, traveling business consultant, and individual deeply concerned about obeying laws and supporting Massachusetts citizens in our ailing economy, I'm taking a day off from work today to urge you to oppose this H. 3285 bill, which in reality has little to do with safe driving. First, there are absolutely no provisions regarding either traffic or driver safety in the bill. Experience from other states, as we've heard testimony of today, state that with a similar law, it shows very, no traffic or safety benefit. I read that the states of New Mexico and Washington, there are other studies I'm sure, pass similar laws, and they are now dealing with more problems of fraud and insurance problems. Other states that license undocumented immigrants have become magnets for fraud and out-of-state applicants. Does the committee seek increases in fraud and abuse in the state? So this bill is all about safety in Massachusetts. I saw on a press conference list of attendees for this event from over 50 well-funded, full-time organizations promoting this bill. But few and any from Massachusetts. Not a single one, as far as I know, promoting safety like the AAA. And none dealing with vehicle transportation. I and others presenting another side of this bill, and basically in opposition, are Massachusetts volunteers. We're deeply worried about really the lies that big businesses, including people like Grover Norquist, are perpetrating on the other side by funding this fiction and perpetrating this promotion of this kind of legislation. Do you think passing this bill will make the roads safer? Do you think passing this bill will bring back Matthew Denise, that we've heard about earlier tonight, from Milford, or make it traveling safer for any cyclists? I'm still really mortified that the governor has not placed a high priority in prosecuting the perpetrator of Matthew's slaughter. And frankly embarrassed that our legislature and my senator have sponsored such harmful legislation, which frankly mocks those who have always prided themselves on obeying the laws and held to high esteem those who enforce the laws. Another issue is jobs. I recently read young job seekers were marching on the State House for jobs. And I repeatedly read how something like 50% of young college graduates today can't find work in their soft profession. And instead they've turned to admirable jobs such as cab driving, waiting tables, attending bar, etc. Today there are 3 people in line for every one of the very few jobs that are available. Do you think granting driver's license to undocumented immigrants, not saddled with any of these costs and liabilities, is doing help to young Americans and other Mass residents looking for work? And then I have some more information on identity fraud. I realize I'm cutting it close here. I apologize for that, but I appreciate the time. Without the ability to verify this information, we've heard about the threats here. And I live in Watertown, by the way, as I had mentioned, and I live several blocks away from the chase where the Sarnaia brothers were caught. I have no confidence that this bill is going to make anything any safer in Massachusetts to prevent terror attacks or from preventing that spread to other states. And so finally, in concluding, once again, I appreciate the opportunity to be before you today, and I urge you to shelf this really bad legislation. When the state gives loophole after loophole to lawbreakers, why should our kids or anybody else take obeying the law seriously? Please instead work toward bipartisan legislation that will help the economy, truly help young people, rather than laws that will turn that will really turn them off and affect them adversely for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Any questions from members of the committee? Thank you. Samantha Almeida.
Would you mind if Richard Hirsch has a meeting video?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Lydia Edwards. I'm the Director of Legal Services at the Brazilian Immigrant Center, and I'm here to testify in favor of the Safe Driving Bill. This bill is about safety. This bill is about the communities that we live in, and that our communities, in practical reality, have immigrants from all over the world. And so, yes, you heard testimony that your jobs as the legislatures are to uphold the law. We also challenge you and also ask that you uphold or do your jobs, which are also to deal with the practical realities in your districts. The practical realities are mothers, fathers, family members are going to drive. And so your jobs as legislatures are to come up with a practical response to that. And while you've heard a lot of reasons about why this shouldn't happen, you really haven't heard any other solution from the other side either. We challenge our opponents to work with us, not against us, to come up with safe driving. And the only thing that seems practical is a license. Do you want people trained? Do you want them insured? Do you want to make sure that they know how to drive on the roads? The only practical response as legislators that we can think of is a driver's license. And you're not alone. 11 states have passed legislation regarding driver's licenses. The movement is for inclusion in the United States. 11 states plus DC and Puerto Rico, that makes 13 districts that have supported including people in driver's licenses. I don't think those states are doing this because they think they're becoming magnets for fraud. I think they understood their jobs as legislators were to come up with practical responses to the realities in their states.
And so we challenge you also to do the same. This has nothing to do with immigration status. No, and I want to make it clear, again, this has nothing to do with immigration status. My friends and colleagues who are not from the United States did not come here for a driver's license. They're not going to leave because they don't have one. Again, this is about safe roads, and this is about us as a community dealing with a difficult issue because Washington, D.C. refuses to move. I want to acknowledge the loss of life of Mr. Dees. I don't want that to be forgotten, that the proponents of this bill do not see how hard that must be. But I want to also acknowledge, as I work at the Brazilian Immigrant Center, we have one of our favorite people who came in to help with our electronics was a man who was undocumented, and he is now in a coma because an American hit him while driving. There are good drivers and bad drivers, and again, it has nothing to do with immigration status. So I stand here also to just give some, to address some other points about the bill practically. I want to note that the bill language is, it's a living, breathing bill. There's nothing final in there. And while Senator Hedlund had some very good questions about the practical implications of the RMV, the reason why the bill is written to give the RMV the freedom that it needs is because we expect the RMV to come up with those standards. And I also want to note this bill, as a breathing bill, does have an option to take to follow Connecticut's lead. After passing their bill, they did say we need to set up a committee, a commission to analyze this bill, so we're not going to give out licenses right away. They took a year. And I would encourage the Commonwealth to encourage, or to have that conversation, and then have the RMV come back to you with standards that I think that will demonstrate the balance between safety, but also assuring that immigrants are fully aware that they're not getting any benefits, which also the bill does state very clearly. So I apologize for having to rush. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll leave that for Shannon Ramira, who will be answering later on.
Thank you. Seeing no questions from members of the committee, thank you again. Christine Gordon.
I am here to oppose this bill. Coming here illegally is already a violation of our law. If you reward illegals by giving them licenses, it will encourage even more illegals to come here to Massachusetts rather than other states. This will hurt our state financially. We are already hurting financially. And we will have even more people violating our laws, including the terrorists. Our population will increase, which means more traffic, especially at rush hour, which is already very bad. We will have less food, less water, no place to put the waste, more car accidents, and more pollution, global warming. New Mexico grants licenses to illegals, but that does not mean their roads are safer or they buy auto insurance. H3285 requires one to buy auto insurance, but that does not mean illegals will bother to buy it or have the money to pay for it. It is not at all safe to give illegals licenses because many of them can't speak English, which makes getting into an accident impossible because you can't get the information you need. I hope you will listen to me for my son's sake as well. He is disabled and he is the future.
Thank you, ma'am. Tony Perez.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Perez. I'm 11 years old and I live in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I am here today to talk about license. I was born in Delaware, and when I was 8 years old, we moved to Massachusetts. And I am a citizen and my parents aren't. My parents feel welcome here in Massachusetts, but they don't get to do everything I would get to do. For example, they can't get a driver's license. I think that it will be a good idea if you give license to my parents because they can be safer on the road, so they can drive me anywhere, and so it feels like we will be free. When I see a cop behind or in front, lot that day. I was 9 when they arrested my dad. My whole family went to work with my dad that day, so we wouldn't be bored at home. The hardest part of the day was that my dad was arrested and lonely. At the police station, I saw him on camera, locked up in a cell. He was lonely and we were lonely without him. My fear was that they had taken my dad away from us, and I was crying because I thought we would never see him again. The police sent him to immigration, and they let him out with a bracelet on his ankle like he was a criminal, but my dad isn't a criminal. Last year, when I was 10, we got a call from immigration saying that he was going to be deported to Guatemala. I thought I would never see my dad again. Many children have lost their fathers. They want to fight to bring them back so they can live happily. I don't want my dad to be deported, and I don't want any other kids to go through what I have been through. I hear my parents talking about license because some people want to learn how to drive and want to be safe on the road. I know that if my dad got a license, he could take me more places. He could take me places like to visit my family in Delaware. I haven't seen them in over a year, and I want to be able to visit them. I'm here asking for license so that people who don't have them right now can have the same opportunities and so that my family could be safe. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Any questions? Phyllis Giblin?
I'll be very brief. I'm Phyllis Giblin, currently living in Billerica. I'm here today to oppose the bill. This country is supposed to be a country of laws. Currently, there are millions of people here illegally who have already broken the law. There have been thousands of American citizens who have already been killed by illegal immigrants, including the young Matthew Denise. Having a license to drive does not make someone a safer driver. What makes it more likely that an illegal immigrant will comply with the law when their mere presence here is breaking the law? I feel this is only a way to provide illegal immigrants a way of embedding more into the American society and ignoring the fact that the law has been broken. As an American citizen and a taxpayer, I ask you to please throw this proposal out and to enforce the current laws. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Any questions? Thank you. Judy Goldberger? Brian Lang? You seem to be the traffic cop. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak before you tonight. My name is Brian Lang. I live in Boston. I'm the president of Unite Here Local 26. We've got hospitality workers. We represent thousands of hotel workers, restaurant workers, food service workers on campuses. As a matter of fact, the industry that we're engaged in, if all of the undocumented workers, by the way, no human being, in our view, if all of the undocumented workers were magically deported, we'd be in crisis in this city. It's an industry that is expanding. Think about your favorite restaurant. Think about the hotels that you recommend people to stay in when they come to the city. There would be a crisis. It's one of the motors of our economy here in Boston. I think it's an important point. I think that there is a safety aspect to this legislation. Because if there isn't, why don't we just do away with driver's license? Why don't we all, let's just get rid of driver's license altogether? Because as the opponents are saying, this isn't going to make it safer, then why have them? Let's get rid of them now. But more importantly, let's deal with the reality of the society that we live in. The laws are out of touch with what's going on. The fabric of the communities that we belong to depend on the immigrants that are doing the work, that are paying the taxes, that are helping industries to thrive. So let's do away with the fiction, because it is a fiction, that we need to be law-abiding when the laws are broken. Those laws need to be fixed, and if the courage to fix them doesn't exist in D.C., we shouldn't be using it as an excuse here in Massachusetts. We're better than that. So please, move forward with this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Ed Kirchner?
Jessica Vaughn.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jessica Vaughn. I live in Franklin. I'm with the Center for Immigration Studies, and I've assisted in drafting driver's license legislation like this in several states, including a couple in New England. And I have to say that this is probably one of the most irresponsible I've seen on the topic. The so-called Safe Driving Bill has the obvious intention of helping illegal immigrants get to their jobs, hospitals, or whatever. But by allowing for the issuance of licenses without collecting a Social Security number has the effect of degrading the integrity of the driver's licenses for all, because it invites fraud into the process. And that is what the experience has been of most of the other states that have tried this, and some of them have reversed themselves. And not only that, it would put Massachusetts in violation of at least three federal laws, and the Real ID Act. And these problems, it would also put Massachusetts out of sync with the best practices as articulated by the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, AMVA, which is the most important body of motor vehicle professionals. They have researched the issue, they have studied it and discussed it, and they have voted on it. And they have put out best practices, which I downloaded today from the AMVA website, that I think you should take a look at. Just a quote from that, they say, motor vehicle administrators have traditionally felt their mission was to assure traffic safety, but it is now clear that consumer protection and identity security are equally significant. One of their best practices is to collect and verify Social Security numbers from applicants. And the reason for that is because the Social Security number is key to being able to verify that people are who they say they are. It makes no sense to provide state-issued documents to people who you can't necessarily establish that they are who they say they are. And that is who would be documented through this process. The 9/11 hijackers had 36 licenses among 18 of them. They used them to rent cars, rent apartments, open bank accounts, and get on airplanes. And that's why AMVA adopted these standards, to close that problem in our licensing laws. And so under this bill, the people who depend on licenses for identification, including banks, local merchants, landlords, all of that process would be undermined, not to mention law enforcement itself. There's a reason that the Fraternal Order of Police has endorsed these standards nationwide. So I just can't imagine that, we've had firsthand experience with terrorist attacks here in Massachusetts, and I know that none of you would want to contribute to making it easier for people who mean us harm to be able to do so by obtaining identification through fraud and misrepresentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
again, so since you said you had some experience in writing some laws, would some of that experience say that the thing to do would be to split these two issues, the ID issue and the driver's license issue? Essentially, looking at the ID as a much bigger issue in terms of guaranteeing who someone is or not. I just, in your experience, if you could
Well,
do that.
the driver's license has become a de facto identification for use by federal governments and a host of other people who need to know that the people they're dealing with are who they say they are, and that that's been checked. And that was the impetus behind all the standards that AMPA has put together to have integrity in the process and also reciprocity to make that possible. Because when states have different standards, then they start to not want to accept other states' licenses if they feel that they are not up to those standards. So it's kind of hard to separate the two. The driver's license isn't just for driving anymore, whether we like it or not. That toothpaste is already out.
Well, for example, I carry several forms of ID, a gun license, scuba diver's license, a few other things that show that I have certain, I've met certain criteria on those things. And they're separate from my driver's license, obviously. So the question really remains whether or not we can resolve any problems as long as we're tying these two issues together. I guess that's my big question, is as long as we insist on tying these two issues together, can we really resolve any of these issues?
You mean
ID
driver's license and
ID,
immigration,
right.
or?
No, forget the immigration, just ID. Because it's the real issue of who I say I am as I get on an airplane, who I say I am when I go into a bank is one issue. And then the issue of whether or not I'm qualified to handle a gun, drive a car, do other things. It seems to me to be the crux of this. As long as we insist on tying these two things together, I don't think we're going to make any headway at all. I mean, and I point out that I do have other licenses that do qualify, do say that I have a certain standard.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the gun license because, as a matter of fact, to get a license to carry a firearm here in Massachusetts, you show your driver's license. And so that's why the Gun Owners Action League is opposed to this bill, because they realize that that opens up the opportunity for people whose identity has never been verified to be able to carry a firearm. And they are concerned about that, as are a number of law enforcement agencies here in the Commonwealth.
But we see law enforcement agency coming in, police chief after police chief coming in and saying in support of this. So I think
Sheriff Hodgson.
Yeah. But again, I know that there's a de facto situation right now because that is the ID that we use. We use the state-issued driver's license for an ID. The question really, again, is, are we going to be able to solve any of these things as in terms of the real ID, as long as we keep on doing that?
Well, I think that the state has a decent, it's not up to real ID standards, but it's a decent system for verifying identity now. And that is the de facto identification that all of these other entities rely on. So if the legislature wanted to create a different form of identification that could be used for federal purposes and all these other scenarios, that would be a different story, but that's not done in this bill.
No, I'm asking your opinion.
I think that is a much more costly and disruptive process than what we have right now, which is a reasonably secure, although not as good as it could be, driver's license in the Commonwealth.
That would have been my only question, is using the driver's license and having it come into compliance with real ID standards so that Massachusetts residents who probably in the 90 percentiles who use the driver's license to board a plane could continue to do that. Can you bring these driver's licenses
social security numbers to be provided in order to issue the license.
Any other questions? Thank you. Roy Patno?
Hi, how are you? It's Ron, by the way.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'm left-handed, so.
No, I can show you why I thought.
No, it's, I'm left-handed, my writing sucks. Good morning, now afternoon. I'd like to thank the Transportation Committee for holding today's hearing. My name is Ron Patnod. I'm here today representing the Hampshire Franklin Central Labor Council, which is a branch, if you will, of the state Mass AFL-CIO. Our council is endorsed and supports HB 3285, an act relative to safe driving, and we ask that the committee find it favorable and move it out of committee and hopefully to a vote. While we recognize that there are some who view this legislation as somewhat controversial, I would like to say that as a trade unionist, I believe in and try my best to practice and uphold the labor movement's long, proud tradition of supporting civil rights for all workers and all people. Because it's the right thing to do. And as long as circumstances exist that keep people in the shadows, it will create conditions that allow and encourage exploitation of those individuals to the detriment of all of us as a society. There's also another less controversial view held by members of our council and many others, including the governor, I believe, and that is that this is an important public safety issue and that this bill will ensure that those who drive on our roads in the Commonwealth are trained, licensed, and insured. While I don't think that anyone could dispute that our immigration laws in this country need review and to be overhauled, we cannot wait for that to happen. We have an opportunity to help people move out of the shadows and the vulnerability of exploitation while simultaneously making our roads safer. We believe common sense should guide this debate and ask that the committee move to report this legislation out favorably. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience today. Any questions? Yes.
I just wanted to say hello to Ron. Nice
How are
to see
you?
you here.
How are
I
you?
see you around West Springfield all the time. It's nice to see you here at the State House. Thank you.
Thank you.
He says the same to you.
Thanks.
Next on the list would be Bob Casimiro.
You have to forgive me, Mr. Chairman, I'm a little slow. When I got up at 4 o'clock this morning up in western Maine, I looked outside and it was snowing. It was a slow day to start my day. So, if I may, let me just give you a little bit of my background, even though I'm from Maine. I moved back to Maine several years ago, but I lived in Massachusetts for many years. And when I was here, I was executive director of Massachusetts Citizens Immigration Reform. In that capacity, I traveled in all 6 New England states to help start up groups, take part in meetings, protests. Even went to the Vermont border on a border watch and up to Maine to protest outside Senator Collins' office. I also went to the, I am a middleman, I went to the, I've been to the border 5 times. Border watch activity. When I was living in Massachusetts, I lived in Pittsfield, Arlington, Quincy, and Wayne. I'm sorry Senator Hedlund isn't here because Senator Hedlund has Steve A. Mayo, Senator Quando Moro, and Wayne. Me ho, me va. Llegarán aquí, los Estados Unidos, este museo ligas. I'm not being cute using Portuguese because what I am is informed by our heritage, my heritage, as all of us are. I oppose this bill. Now, I'm from Maine. Can I oppose it, or do I have to just kind of say I disagree with it, or don't like it? Or I could oppose it.
First Amendment applies in Massachusetts. Say what you like.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to get something off my heart. As I say, I've been to the border 5 times. The last time I was there, we worked during the day, worked at night. We detect illegal aliens, we call them border patrol. They're the ones that do the enforcement. One night, we detected illegal aliens This time they flew in a helicopter. And the helicopter circled around, it seemed like forever, with the spotlight already here and there, and there were trees there. And the trees were washing, blowing the trees around. And you know what I thought of? I thought of the days, earlier days in our history when we had slavery. I thought of plantation owners on horseback chasing down their slaves. And I thought to myself, this shouldn't be. More recently, I was reading that in 2012, there were about 450 people who died in the desert trying from across the United States. You know what I felt? I was ashamed to be an American. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't happen. Senator, one of the early speakers, Enright Albright, what's his? Eldridge. He was talking about comprehensive immigration reform not being passed by Congress. And all our problems are caused by that. And it's just a terrible thing. Because this could be stopped overnight. It could be stopped overnight if we had the will, if we had the politicians in Washington who do what they have to do. I won't go into the details. I can make my own plan. You'd have to anoint the benevolent dictator for maybe 6 months. But I don't know if anybody's going to do that. But I'm opposed to this bill. And let me give you a couple of experiences I had.
I just want you to be mindful of the time that everybody is sharing.
Yeah, I understand.
3-minute limit.
Yeah, I understand.
We're down to it already.
Okay. I'm opposed to the bill, and I think that we don't look at driver safety, we look at the people who we're talking about. And the illegal aliens, most of them work, half of them who work are playing under the table, so they evade income taxes, which is a felony. The other half use bogus social security numbers, and that is also a felony. A lot of the money that they earn is sent back to their home tax. So, let me just sum up. That's about all I have to say. I just wanted to get that first part done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience and
Yeah.
have a safe drive.
Anybody want to drive back with me?
Thank you for the answer. Sergio Perez.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, after being sitting down for 5 hours, I admire and commend your patience and the level of respect in this room. Thank you for the job that you do. Appreciate that. I'm Reverend Sergio Perez, President of the Hispanic Pastoral Fellowship of New England. The safe driving bill is the light at the end of a dark, long, and lonely tunnel for many of our brothers and sisters. And allow me to testify of the dim reality that I have personally witnessed in our community. We are a family-oriented community. Like many others, our people is willing to do whatever it takes to love and provide for their families. Work second and third shifts, get up in the middle of the night to go to work, find ways to get to work, and yes, if they have to, they drive without their licenses. Prudently, of course, they limit themselves to the basics, and I mean literally the basics. Go to work, church, and some grocery shopping. For the majority of the residents in Massachusetts, driving is just a matter of turning 16 and taking some driving lessons. But for many in our hard-working community, driving legally has become an unreachable privilege and a quixotic dream. Can we drive just as good as our licensed carrying friends? You bet we do. If you think that driving in Boston is challenging, you have never driven a beat-up 72 Toyota Corona, no Corolla, Toyota Corona on the streets of Nicaragua, Colombia, Ecuador, or Argentina. I have in a standard vehicle. My point is this: if driving is a privilege for those who have gone through the process of being approved by the state for safety driving, then our immigrant friends should enjoy the privilege. Why not? On the other hand, we are also concerned for those who have all proper documentations. For instance, not too long ago, one of our pastors was driving on his way home. He made the proper stop at the red light when another driver hit him from the back. Sadly, he wasn't alone. In his car was his 5- and 9-year-old sons with him. When he pulled over to examine his car, the last time he saw the person who hit him. Whatever the reason the other driver didn't stop was, let us make sure that it's not because of the fear for being deported due to no license. I know that we have heard different point of views legally from the medical field and many other areas, and I need to shut up because I want to follow the law. And but I'm appealing to you at the humanitarian level. The thing that we all have in common is that we are human beings, we want to be responsible, and we have to respond to the needs of our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor. Any questions? Carol Blackton? William Joyce? Came close before.
Yeah, Joyce is, Paul is my middle name. It created even more confusion.
Well, then you really could have pulled it off.
Mr. Chairman, I see this issue a little bit differently. I was a former Department of Justice official for 20 years, focused on immigration issues. Spent my last 6 years as an immigration judge here in Boston. And I often wondered myself, when we'd order someone deported, why they actually didn't leave. But we are faced with a totally stark reality here that there's not hordes of people coming across the border deadheading for Boston now. I think most people that are here end up overstaying their visas, but that's more of an immigration issue. The federal government has not confronted this matter, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. I constantly, in my practice, see people who've been here for 10, 15, 20 years, have families. These people are residents of Massachusetts. And I almost see this as a civil rights type of issue. And I would say, whether they're documented or not, at this stage, they have certain rights. And on the issue of identity, there's many ways that you can sort out identity. You can take fingerprints, you can use passports. I don't buy the notion that we're never going to be able to prove who this crowd is versus somebody who lived here or showed up from another state. On some issue that people are just kind of all come to Massachusetts now because we've got this deal. Well, we've got a number of states just to our south. You got Connecticut, you got Maryland, you got D.C. There's a ton of misinformation going on. I suggest and I'm sure there's people who can do this, if this was studied in a legitimate way, that this would be a plus budgetary issue to the Commonwealth. It's not going to cost us any more money. This crowd is dying to just come out and sort of pay their way. So I strongly support this bill. The other point I want to make, talking to my judge colleagues who work at the state level, it's extremely frustrating to see a very large part of your docket being driving without a license. And we're wasting time. You talk to police chiefs, they have the same problem. You talk to the cop on the street. Well, it is true. They don't know who they're dealing with. We've got to be in a more positive situation if we can identify who these people are. And I can assure you there are means out there to sort out identity. And I guess that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Questions from members of the committee? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ed White?
You may have to depart as well.
Okay. Shannon Irwin?
Thank you, Chairman. In addition to submitting written testimony, I do have frequently asked questions. These are helpful. Thank you. Chairman Strauss, members of the committee, thank you so much for your stamina and patience through this long process. I think you have seen how important
this issue is to hundreds of folks, literally, really thousands of folks in the community, that they're willing to take time off work and come out here, often from Western Mass and other regions. I want to take the opportunity to address certain factual information, which I'm not sure was fully covered in other testimonies. There seems to be, as Mr. Joyce pointed out, a lot of misinformation out there. To start out, this bill really arises from the same unremarkable proposition that licensing more generally arises from. That is that we want to know who's driving on our roads. We want to make sure everyone's gone through the exam and knows the rules, and everyone's paying their fair fees and their liability insurance. Right now, if somebody is involved in an accident with an uninsured driver, that could be $500 or even $1,000 out of their pocket. Their deductible that they're not going to be reimbursed for because the other driver does not carry insurance. So there's a real financial impact for folks as well as the public safety impact. The Real ID Act has been mentioned a couple of times. The Real ID Act is not yet being enforced. We have information from the Department of Homeland Security that they're starting to think about an enforcement schedule. It says that no sooner than 2016 would they talk about enforcing the Real ID provisions with regards to airplanes. What does that mean? Massachusetts is not currently complying with the Real ID Act. That much is clear. This bill would neither prevent us from making changes in the future to comply, nor cause us to comply. And there's a lot of provisions in the Real ID Act dealing with driver's licenses that have nothing to do with immigration status, but would require expensive technological upgrades. That's one of the reasons many states are not complying. It's an unfunded mandate. Should the state want at some point to comply with the Real ID Act, or to issue, I should say, a Real ID compliant license, there's options to do that without denying undocumented folks licenses. Washington State issues an enhanced license that folks who want to be Real ID compliant can pay a little bit more for because it's a little bit more technologically involved, and that's one option. Others may want to use their passport to board a plane. But again, the Real ID Act is not currently being enforced, and we believe it's an unfunded mandate and cannot be forced on the states. There was some question about what the process to verify people's identity is. In the last page of the FAQs, you'll see a chart of what the RMV currently requires from every applicant for a license. They already verify date of birth, residence, state residence, that's important, so this would not be a magnet to draw folks from other states, and signature. In addition, they do currently require a social security number or a denial notice from the Social Security Administration together with certain proof of immigration status. That fact is important because the RMV is already accepting applications for licenses from some people without social security numbers. This is not a brand new thing. It's just that in the meantime they're acting like immigration paralegals, trying to sort through complex immigration documents from all the folks who have a denial letter from the SSA. We don't think that's appropriate. If the RMV were to want to add new documentation that they could accept as a result of the Safe Driving Bill, they would be permitted to do that through rulemaking. And in fact, Connecticut did establish, as Lydia Smith-Edwards from Brazilian Immigrant Center referenced, a working group of folks to look at identification issues and advise the RMV. It's also important that a number of states who have already passed this legislation are working through those issues right now, and we can learn from them. I know my time is short. I really would I would be thrilled if you throw questions at me. Honestly, this time is incredibly valuable to me. So if you have any questions, please ask me, or I'm happy to follow up with you one-on-one.
I suppose you search your experience or knowledge any other state. Is there, because people keep saying this has nothing to do with immigration, is there a way in which in any state, even Massachusetts, someone who has is not a citizen but has a recognized status so that they are able to be in this country can nevertheless obtain a state driver's license?
Yes, there's a whole lot of categories of documented immigrants who are currently eligible for licenses.
And what do they need to show?
The same documents as everybody else. So proof of date of birth, proof of signature, proof of Massachusetts residence from those documents on that chart. Excuse me. Many of them will have a social security number because they're work authorized. Every person with a social security number must provide it. This bill would not change that fact. For those who do not have a social security number, and there are some documented immigrants who don't, they have to provide an I-94 immigration document with an acceptable visa code. That's actually less than the full universe. That's not available to the full universe of documented immigrants who don't have SSN. So to give an example, an applicant for a U visa, so some of the folks from Reach Beyond Domestic Violence, who you heard from earlier, RMU visas now as domestic violence victims during the whole application period, which can last years. They do not have work authorization, they do not have an SSN. They're also ineligible for a license because they don't have an acceptable visa code. So there are documented immigrants who are also being impacted by restriction.
But we do have I mean, obviously it's not for everyone, but
Right.
there is a system that's been in place for years.
Yes.
That allows people who don't have a social security number.
Correct.
But their immigration status is resolved.
Right, all the
I hate
people
to
who are,
use the
sure, all the
terminology.
people who are currently eligible for licenses in Massachusetts are documented.
Okay.
Just briefly, because we do see in licenses an ability to change. Let's take a youth or underage, not underage, but a beginning license basically has got a different format. It's got an up and down format as opposed to the horizontal format. And any of the licenses for visa holders, they are the same license as the standard license. There's no reason why we couldn't have a different design for anybody.
That is a great question. I think there are reasons why we, as a policy consideration, we would not want to do that, which I'll talk about, but I did want to make clear that the bill does provide for a visually distinct license for people without SSNs. We're not thrilled about that. We think the bill could best carry out its purpose if the licenses were not marked or identical, because people would have less fear about applying for them. And yet we think there's a way around that, and that is the RMV would implement the visually distinct, whatever they chose to be the visual distinction, through rulemaking. And we could advocate to the RMV, and the legislature could use your authority to express to them that this would be wise, that the distinction be recognizable only by a trained law enforcement officer. Something very subtle that a cashier will not take as a sign that somebody is the I word, right, and take it upon themselves to discriminate against that person, to abuse their business. The law enforcement it's appropriate for law enforcement, if there needs to be a population that can read that it would be law enforcement, but we would really like to see it be as minimal as possible.
Well, that's just assuming that category is a small, sort of undocumented, if you will, category. But if it was a wider category, which is all visa holders, and it becomes, instead of singling someone out because it's a small community, basically it's anybody who's not essentially a U.S. citizen.
So that's actually part of the thinking behind the enhanced license idea, that the larger population can have one license, but people who are citizens and want to pay a little bit more and get this special Real ID compliant license can do so, and that will look different. But it does seem appropriate to put the burden on people who are least likely to be subject to discrimination, right? It's a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I leave something with you? I'm sorry, I don't mean to go over time, but I neglected to mention that there's been a few points, at a few points it's been said that traffic deaths did not go down after states passed this. We have documentation from the New Mexico Department of Transportation that shows that it does, also cited in our testimony. Thank you so much.
Next on the list, Ludo Gardini.
Chairman, committee. Thanks for the patience. This bill, it is about public safety. The issue here is not being undocumented. The issue is for the federal government to solve. The Commonwealth has a Democratic majority party, people who should support a comprehensive immigration reform. But how can that be done if we, as the Commonwealth, cannot do our part and pass Bill 83285? How can we assert the safety on the streets if we do not know who is driving? This bill is not about legalizing undocumented people. This bill is about public safety. Just a second. This bill is about the police not doing immigration customs enforcement job. 50 years ago, Martin Luther King went against the law. He was a criminal. He was illegal. He broke the law. But he did what was right. Today we are here to try to do what's right. It might not be legal right now because people, they cross the border. And now they do not have the chance to come back into legality. I believe it's upon the state or the Commonwealth to give them a chance. I believe 95% of the undocumented people with the law. I am an immigration lawyer, and I deal with this on a daily basis. And the biggest complaint, believe it or not, it is not to become legal. Eventually they want to, but it's to be able to drive legally. Because I'm tired to deal with clients in a sad way when they have their mothers, as we had a testimony here today, 4 children, and they get pulled over by driving without a license. Immigration comes and deport their mother, and now we have a broken family and 4 minors in the country. So it's a very sad situation. In one wrong, the fact they are here illegally does not justify another wrong about not giving or granting them a driver's license. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Next, Martha Yeager. Someone signed in as Philippe M. That's just the last initial. Okay. Hopefully you recognize your name. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I came in the United States of America in 2004, May 22nd. After 7 days, I got my first salary. It was cash, $500. It's 5 salary equivalent in my country. If you guys have the opportunity, unfortunately to say that because I do love Brazil, to travel in 40 countries and see how we live, I don't blame you guys to think different. No, you guys are, I understand the other side. We don't came here to steal money, to sell drugs. I have 7 years old. I love to drive. I need to drive. When I drive with my son that I see state police parking somewhere, I don't like the guns, but that's the first thing crossed my mind. Where's the next gun? No. When we have people who born in this country and lost their kids, didn't have opportunity to see them married, to graduate, something, it hurts me too. It does hurt me. It hurts anyone. But could you call me a thief or murder something because someone did something wrong? How fair you guys are if you take all together and say those people are bad. By the way, who doesn't know, Brazil helped the United States from the Second World War. And here we are. One thing, I came to this country, I found out, I'm sorry, no one's perfect. So I asked someone how to live here the right way. They said, I can't. I said, I don't want to live. They said, you have to pay your taxes. Since that, 2005, I started to pay my taxes. After I have my friend, I only have one son here, but when I have my son and I do my tax return, I realize I have no rights to take anything back. My life became a little more difficult, but I'm not proud of this country. If you guys get together enough with 200,000 Syria, God, I'll not leave this country. My son has much better opportunity here, unfortunately. It's a proud the fact that we have the picture that we have in this world. And the driver license for us, it's not given. If we are here and you guys not going to take us completely out, all the families that illegal immigrants in this country, so let us do the right thing. Let's really live in the right way. That's all we're asking for. To live it right. To don't be afraid. To don't be concerned. When you pay your taxes, when you get IT number, the paper they sent you said you're not allowed to work. But if you work, you must pay your tax. We do this. It shows all of you that against us, we want to go in the right way. We're not here to have fun. We have families. We grow. We try to become a better person. So why make us live in this horrible situation? Do you know how, for who has a kids, to wake up in the morning, 5:30, you have to wake up and suddenly you're afraid that police knock out and say, sir, you gotta go? Do you understand what it's like when you drive your son on Six Flags? Thanks God my wife is legal, so she can drive much as she can. But can you imagine when the police have those things that they put everyone over? How I'm freaking out? Just consider, we have family, and what we ask them to do just to do the right thing. That's all we want. We don't want nothing free. We work. And we are good works in this. And sorry for who lost the kids, husband or something, but we can pay for that. It's individual action and hurts everyone. Okay? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no questions from the community. Next is Ronnie Miller. Well, actually, next is Ron Madden. So your timing was precious.
I
should explain that hundreds of our people had to leave who favored the bill because of transportation and family issues, and plus we were told that the hearing would last from 1 to 3. So I was amazed there were like maybe 500 people in the hallway before. I stuck my head out a little while ago, and it was almost empty. So I want you to understand they were here. Let me say that I was at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. One of my grandsons was 21 years old to get his license, and with him was his father, Ken, who's extremely conservative. It's about 5:30 in the afternoon. He's getting concerned whether or not he'll ever come back the next day. Will he take him in time? He looks around, he sees all these people, different colors of the rainbow, and he made a comment that I disagreed with. And I said, Ken, don't you think it's better to have people on the road who have taken the tests, have a license, and are insured than are not? He said, you're right, and that was the end of the conversation. I'm sorry that John Mahoney's not here, he's one of my neighbors, I was pulling to my street near John, and somebody clipped me, and he was insured. We changed licenses. He's at fault. My car was fixed. Everybody was happy. Suppose the person had been uninsured. Well, I couldn't collect from his insurance company. He's uninsured. I probably could sue him in small claims court, I guess, but if he has a family of 4 and minimum wages, doesn't have deep pockets, so he's not going to be able to take care of what happened to me. What am I going to do? Of course, you can carry uninsured insurance. But then again, more people who are uninsured who are driving, the higher that becomes. So that's costing you money. So just now, I just described an accident, John, I had near your house. And the driver was insured. My car was fixed. We were all happy. And I was saying to the committee, suppose he had not been insured, I couldn't go to an insurance company. I probably couldn't sue him unless he had deep pockets. And the fewer drivers on the road who are uninsured, the better we all are. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
No, and thank you for sticking it out today. I appreciate that. There are a couple of signatures that remain on the list, but to be honest, I couldn't even attempt a bad pronunciation. So what I would do now is ask if there are people who did sign in or did not sign in but wish to testify on the bill. So I'll just start with you and we'll work around. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for having me testify. Appreciate for all your time. I know everybody's time. But my name is Adriano Sampaio, and I do have my license. And I don't think it's a privilege. I think everyone has right to have a license over here in Massachusetts. Because I have a lot of friends, they don't have a license, but they do pay taxes. We're not here just to get money from the government or nothing else, but we want to contribute with this state. We love this state. We love this country. We are proud to be here. We just want to have the right to do the right thing. I know some people, it's against just to be, because they someday come in here legal. I know it's not everyone had this opportunity to come in here legal, but everyone came in here, they want a better life for their family. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and we love her. Everyone here loves their family. They want to do the best for their family. And we just ask you, please, let them drive. Let them, they have a life without afraid to be stopped to the police office or to be separate from their family. Please go forward with this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was supposed to testify, but it's with Lydia.
You have traded with Lydia.
Because she had a meeting.
And
Samantha?
Yeah, Samantha Almeida.
Yeah.
Let me take you now. I'm sorry, I put you in her place. Thank you.
my committee chairs and members of Transportation Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Samantha. I'm 30 years old, and I was born in Brazil. In 1994, my father divorced my mom, and the first month he was supposed to pay child support, he disappeared. And in July, it's going to be 20 years, and we haven't heard from him ever since. My mom went through really hard time in Brazil with me and my brother, and she got an opportunity to come to America. And she said, I have to do it for my kids, and she did. For 2 years and a half, she worked really, really hard. And she saw that me and my brother could have a better life here in America, and she brought me and my brother. And before President Clinton left office, he signed an immigration bill into law. But even though we paid a lot of money to an immigration lawyer, that did not provide us a pathway to citizenship yet. On June 15, 2012, when President Obama announced the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival Program, DACA, I was really excited. Finally, I was going to get my opportunity. I would have go to college, I could have got my license, I could have got a better job. I got all my records together. When I went to apply, I found out that I was 6 months too old to apply. I needed to have entered the country before 16. I turned 16 May 26. I entered the country December 14. I was upset. I was angry, but I was happy that my brother qualified for it. And we've been apart from my mom, but we always do everything together. And for the first time, our lives stood separate ways. And my brother now is going to college. He's driving around. He got a better job. And as long as, I am happy for him, but I don't think it's fair because I didn't do anything wrong. It was not my choice to come to this country, but I choose to love this country. I just want an opportunity to drive to work and to get a better life. I still have some hope that we're going to have immigration reform. But as we learned last year, we cannot count on Congress to do the right thing. So, but Massachusetts, you guys cannot pass immigration reform, but you guys can make our lives a lot easier, and will be a lot easier for American citizens because we won't be afraid to drive, and if we have an accident, we won't fly away because we're afraid of being deported. So I urge you guys to think, what would you feel if your parents were going through, because I'm pretty sure you guys all have immigrants, family, and everything. Just put yourself in our position. We're not undocumented, documented. We're just like people like everybody else. And this country has always opened their door for us. And I hope that you guys would give a favor to report to it. And thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I didn't catch you.
No problem.
Training your spot.
No, but I was here. I was going to be here until the end. So.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to thank you for giving everyone here an opportunity to have something to say about the issue. My name is Jim Rizzoli. I live in Framingham, Massachusetts. I'm probably the only person in the country that I know of anyway, that has a cable show that deals with illegal immigration. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I don't hate illegals. I have no problem with them at all being here in some ways. But here's the issue that we have to think about, what's happening with the illegals. 25 people a day are killed by illegal alien drivers. Now, really, giving them a license now, would that cut that down? I don't think so, because a lot of them are drunk drivers. So it has nothing to do with them having a license or not, because a lifestyle is a lifestyle, and if you're going to drive drunk, you're going to kill anybody anyway. I mean, that's the way it is. A license is not going to do that. But here's something that nobody has said here at this meeting that I think you should know about. This has nothing to do with safety, driving, anything. This has to do with the fact that by having a license, they have an opportunity to get credit. And if they can walk into a store and get credit cards and do all these type of things, that opens up Pandora's box for a lot of criminal activity. Because what's happening with the illegals here, it was brought out that they have Social Security numbers. The majority of them that do, the Social Security numbers are false. So sure, they can use a Social Security number, but it's going to be false. So where's your ID safety? There's no ID safety. The problem is, who are these people? They have 5 or 6 names. All right, so they can use one name to get that license. Now let's say they have an accident, kill somebody, they just toss that license away, and then they go get another license and have another name. They have it because they have 5 or 6 identities. It's not like these people know that. They're not kidding you. I mean, if you ask them how many identities they have, they probably have 3 or 4. That's why their names have 4 names in them. Because the fact that they can interchange the names and use the identity. So again, I'm against this whole thing for those 2 reasons, okay? Identity fraud, the fact that they're in the country illegally using false identities, and that's going to be a problem, and the fact that they're going to use these licenses for credit, which is going to open up another, like I said, Pandora's box for criminal activity, and that's going to be another huge problem down the road for us when we have to deal with fraud and all these type of things. So, you know, you do what you want, but again, this is a big problem that's going to get worse if you give them the licenses. Now, granted, there are some people that have been here 20 years that there might be some sort of exception to the rules here, that people that have been here for a long time, but again, that's an exception to the rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just Ruth working across the room. I'm going to be moving back and forth.
Can I speak right after him?
No. And let me say this before anyone else speaks. The purpose of the hearing is for the committee members to acquire information. You saw that I cut short 2 of my colleagues earlier when they were engaging in, I called it a preview of the floor debate. That's not going to be the purpose of the hearing.
Yes.
So it's not necessary to respond to other comments. The focus of the hearing remains.
Okay.
Your thoughts about the bill.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I saw in this row, well, let me get you to start, and we'll just keep working back and forth on time.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to testify before you on this bill. My name is Tom Casey. I live in Waltham, where 2 years ago I was in a car accident with an undocumented immigrant. He was at fault, and I was enraged to learn that he had no license or insurance. Luckily, there were no injuries, only damage to the cars. But there might have been injuries, and certainly have been similar instances across the Commonwealth. My rage has been replaced with frustration. Thousands upon thousands of undocumented immigrants live in Massachusetts and have for many years. They will not be rounded up for trial and be deported. They will remain here, have families, and continue to work for a better life. The ongoing failure to integrate these people into our legal society will only make the resulting civil and social issues worse. Forcing these otherwise capable and honest people to drive without the opportunity for training, testing, licensing, and insurance puts every driver, passenger, and pedestrian at greater risk. The longer we wait to rectify this, the worse the situation will become. We need to recognize this reality and do what is necessary to make the roads safer for everyone who lives here. My heart truly goes out to the families who have lost loved ones or suffered injuries in accidents with undocumented immigrants. But we all must stand back and take a dispassionate look at this issue and create practical solutions that will most benefit public safety. I urge you to change the current law and allow undocumented immigrants the privilege of driving in Massachusetts.
Thank you for your testimony and the matter of the printing of it as well.
Good evening. My name is Liz Travolsi. I am a resident of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I am married to an undocumented person. We have talked a lot about people who've come here, had families, their children, but let me talk about a different group. People who have married into U.S. families. These are people who help their in-laws. My parents are in their 80s. Their ability to drive has decreased. I'm working. My husband's available. He's been driving in his country for 30 years. He was a truck driver. He's an excellent driver. They would very much like to be able to ask him, could you drive me tonight? Could you take me out? It's snowing out. They can't do that because he hasn't got a license. They can't put him on their insurance. And were he to have an accident, it would invalidate all of their insurance. So they can't do that. So that's an issue. It's not just an issue for immigrants who have come here and had families. It is an issue for immigrants who have come here and become part of the American population and married into American families. Second point I want to make. I have been involved with the immigrant community in Berkshire County for 12 years now. I have helped people prepare taxes, including undocumented aliens, and that includes obtaining the individual tax ID number. I have accompanied people into the courts when they've had to answer for driving without a license. I've helped people get education for their children. And so what I am saying to you is that a lot of people who are looking to get licenses have long track records in the community. They can prove their identity. They have a track record, and they're not about to change who they are. It doesn't serve their purposes. They have bank accounts. They've been filing taxes. They've paid thousands of dollars of back taxes. In fact, when somebody applies for a tax ID number, if you have been working with a false Social Security number in the years prior, and you suddenly decide, well, I've got a family now, I really need to start thinking about getting right with the law, I'm going to go start filing my tax ID number. Great. What does the IRS come back and say? The IRS says, let me tell you about those W-2s that we've got that have been accumulating with your name on it. And guess what? You didn't file taxes for those years. You owe not just the taxes for those years, you owe the 50% penalty for not filing, you owe the interest. Lots of people end up paying thousands of dollars. Now, I don't know anybody who is who has got nefarious purposes who wants to pay $14,000 in order to get along with this. I just don't know these people. So there are lots of people who have gone to great lengths to establish themselves in the community. And they are able to prove themselves. One other point that the senator was asking about, how would we distinguish between the purpose of identity versus the purpose of driving competence? One thought that occurred to me is that you could make a distinction between people whose originating documentation is foreign versus originating documentation is American. And so within the foreign capacity would be anybody with a visa, anybody who was a student, anybody who's come to practice medicine. Also, people who, because immigration in its incredibly slow manner, leaves people sort of in limbo. They actually are here legally, but the paperwork hasn't come through. And so they are here. I know. But I just wanted to cover the basis of that there's a whole lot of people that this can cover, and I wanted to just let people think about the fact that there is a lot of documentation as to who is who, and this can be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go, somebody, anybody?
Thank you for this opportunity. Just before the members from the other side leave, I was just trying to understand in the room. I admire the gentlemen and the ladies that come before you with statistics, with numbers, with facts, with emotion, with passion, and to tell you that all of us are terrorists, that all of us are criminals, that all of us want to pull off United States of America. You know what? You guys scare me. I'm sorry to tell you, I admire you, but you scare me, because if you've noticed, our desire is to prove the opposite. I'm not going to be naive, and I'm not going to say that they aren't bad apples in our communities. Yes, they are bad apples in our communities. But I am here standing in front of before you're representing the good apples in the community, the members of my church. I've been a member of my church for 30 years, and I am no one special. There are many members here who have members of churches for many years. I am a citizenship instructor. I don't know if you know this, but the new citizenship application is not going to be 10 pages. It's 22 pages, more than 50 questions. And these people are more than willing to understand, learn the principles of democracy. If you want to take a quick test, ask anybody in this room who has become a U.S. citizen. Who was the first president? What year? What's the continental, all those great things that happened. We learn the principles of democracy. We learn history. Why? Why do we want to do that? Because we want to show our colleagues that we're not all people who drink and kill and do bad things. We're more than willing to do whatever we need to do to show you that, okay, maybe some of us broke the law, because by the way, not everybody came through the border, okay? Some people actually came with visas. What will it take for us to show you that our members of our community do want to do things the right way? What would it take? Is it a 100-page application? Is it paying fees? Is it saying, I'm sorry? Is it writing a letter? Is it going through detox? Is it, what would it take to show you that we're not here to do bad? scholarship to one of the best universities in the world, what would it take for us to show you that the only thing we want is a piece of paper that would give us some of the dignity that we have lost because of the decisions that our parents made to bring us to this country? What's it going to take to show you, to try to convince you in a rational way that we don't want to harm anybody? We just want to be able to, I am a U.S. citizen, senators, and I am afraid to drive next to a police station or by a state police, because many times I have to drive some of my friends, and because they're undocumented. Funny, because they're undocumented. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm the one afraid to see a police, because I think, man, if I mess up here, their life is ruined. So what would it take for us to show you that by us asking for a license, we just need an opportunity to show you that we do want to integrate into this great country. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi folks, how are you? Thank you very much for the opportunity. I thought I was going to be speaking to you guys, but I was going to speak it out of my heart. Same thing here. I moved to the United States 1999. I was 18 years old. I came with my visa to visit a friend, decided to stay. So I took my license in Florida with no Social Security, only using my passport, and that was my name since then. Never changed my name. And I have been here since the beginning. I see a lot of people say a lot of things, but a lot of them, they don't understand the situation because they are not really open to the community. They see the community through outside and they think they know everything. As she said, I'm now legal, I have license, but I have been through a lot of bad things because I didn't have a license. I had family, I have kids, all that stuff. When they ask, having a driver's license is going to make safer, I ask you guys, I ask myself, I have a driver's license. I had to study, I have to pass, I have to go through road test. That made me a better driver. So I learned the laws and everything. So that made me a safer driver like you guys. So that's what I make to these people, because they have to follow the rules, take tests, study, and become really legal to drive. Because now somebody come, for different, country, they come over here, they don't have any experience, but they go behind the wheel and they will drive. So, and the other thing too is about fraud. Everybody is independent. If you want to go do fraud, police will catch you. If you want to become a good person and make this country, go forward, it's up to you. And we cannot be judged because some other people, they want to do things. So that's our point of view. And on our community too, I live in Massachusetts for 13 years. And I love Mass, I love snow, I love fall, I love everything. I love baseball, everything. As everybody knows, we became part of the community. And I see my friends struggle about this, and we are not here to divide it. We are here to help. Years ago I became, I started my own business, and now I need helpers. And I don't have enough helpers because we don't have enough people who drive license. So this is going to help a lot, everyone here. It's not about dividing, it's not about breaking the law, nothing like that. We want to just follow the rules and make sure. And it will be easier for policemen to check and see who is who, on their drive license. Because the way it is right now, as people say, sometimes they can change names and stuff. But no, if they follow the rule, they process their name, they have a fingerprint, done. Then they're not going to have different names anymore, and that'll be that. Thank you very much, folks.
President, if we let me speak, did you want to speak? Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I'm sorry?
Thank you. When I ask you to speak right after me, it's not that I want to respond, not at all. Actually, it's very nice that you guys have us here to speak. So you're going to see that we are not that as brutal, maybe sometimes you guys think. When he mentioned most of us been driving drunk, when he said that us being...
You have to remember what I said. You're not responding to him. You're telling us about the bill.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Okay. When he been saying that, I totally agree with that. Let me finish, sir. Please.
I think everyone knows how cooperative I've been today, and so I am saying this to you to talk about the bill, not anyone else in the room. Please?
Okay, I will. Thank you. I totally agree with that. But it's not just, please, not just immigrants, illegal immigrants drink in this country. DUI have been happening here for centuries of years. Not just Brazilians and Spanish, but also Americans. Okay? I'm going to tell you guys about me. My name is Eric. I live in Malden, and I'm a plaster guy. I'm looking at you right now. I don't remember that I maybe have done some work in your house, but I could have done some work in your relatives. Who knows? I came in here in 2005, and I've done nothing but work. I do have an IT number. You can track it. I do pay my taxes. And it was funny when they say that I was able to get my car insurance, but I wasn't able to get a license. I was saying, hold on. So you try to tell me that I'm able to pay the government for the insurance, but I'm not able to take a license? Who's going to drive the car then? You know? Like I said, I've done nothing but work here. Not just me, but many of us have 1,000 of people that can prove that we're here for 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years, that we can come, get those people together and say, listen, this guy here, Eric, he did my ceiling, he worked in my kitchen, he fixed my bathroom. Oh, hold on, he doesn't have a license. Will that make him a bad person because of that? That's the question. I'm here when I asked him to speak right after him, it's not because I wasn't responding, because I was here late, because I was working. You know the Four Seasons Hotel? That's where I'm working today. I'm doing plastering in one of those ceilings. They don't ask if I have a driver's license to do them ceilings. They happy with the result. They fine with it. All this thing, immigration reform, license, of course, not again using his case, what he said. Of course, there is a lot of bad people. At the same way, we have a lot of bad American people doing wrong stuff. Many of them. Okay? So let's try to not put together they are aliens or they are this. Look at me. I can give you my address. You can go to my house, talk to my wife, have a dinner. What's wrong with that? I'm asking you opportunity to have a better life quality. I'm not asking you money. I am not asking you a job. As I say, not just me, but many of them, most of them, that's what they do. They left home, their own countries, Brazil, Italy. They're not just Spanish. They're not just Brazilian. Oh, immigration reform, just Brazil, Ecuador, Guatemala. Come on. We're talking about the United States. This country was built by immigration date when Collins came here. Okay? Boston South, it's all over England. Okay? You see St. Patrick's Day over here. The whole Irish community, they're huge. Italians and everybody. So we are trying to asking you guys opportunity to have a better life quality. Not food stamps, not better rights, or not this and that. Just a better life quality, if you understand, right? So thanks again for you letting me speak. I know you won't let me speak before. I just want to come out here and say that we are not like, or hold on. We do have a posture too. We were a well-educated home too. I finished the high school home. I didn't have money to go to college. Does that make me a better...
3 minutes went a while ago. I've been very...
Thank you, and I do appreciate that you let me speak. And
let me say this now. There are a few people left. I will be here to listen, but I just want to say to those who may still be thinking about speaking, I've been in a lot of these kind of meetings before, and there is a point, some people see it before others do, where everything has been said, but not everyone has said it. So I'll ask you still want to, please come up.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Really thank you for the opportunity. Sorry about that. I'm very emotional about this. Thank you about the opportunity to talk. My name is Tatiana Pinho. I'm from Brazil. I'm an immigrant. I come here as 2009. And I took my license driving in Washington State. I drove a big truck with my car behind. I have a Ford Explorer 1999. I drove from Washington State to this big truck from Washington State to California, 4 days and 3 nights. And I drove from California to Massachusetts because I see here an opportunity to study in a better safety state, in the NIC community. I drove from California, one big truck again because all my move and my car behind. I never had any problem between these two big travels. And I drive my car here in Massachusetts. Once one police stopped me because my light in the behind, and when he comes nice before, but when he saw the flag, Brazilian flag in my car, had some problem, he gave me a ticket. I saw him change his face because of this. Okay, I had to breathe and try to figure out this. Why I ask you guys to please permit this? Because this is the right things. This is really right things. If you guys want to do it right, please accept and permit we have this. Permit, because we need to go work. Imagine one house clean, one land clean. Need okay, you guys can to have license drive. Imagine we have to take a bus, to take a train, on taxi with 2, 3, 4 vacuum. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my license drive. I have to take the bus. I'm sorry, guys. Taxi, please. I can't have a driving license. I need to put all of my stuff to clean somewhere else. Wow, these are crazy things that happen if this bill doesn't pass. Thanks you guys for listening to me. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm emotional to talk with you guys. But please think about this. I guess it's make better the life of everybody. Thank you for the opportunity, and have a wonderful, great, good night. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you. For being patient today. I know you see a piece of paper, but I promise I'll keep it short and sweet. I am an immigration attorney and criminal defense attorney in Everett. I represent many undocumented individuals that unfortunately are not able to drive, and so I hear all of their stories. And I've been to court approximately 50 times for unlicensed operation, among other things. But I can tell you firsthand what happens in our district courts when people go in for unlicensed operation. The ADAs don't want to deal with it. The judges don't want to deal with it. It's just clogging up our court system. And I don't need to explain to you how our criminal justice system works, but people do get fingerprinted. We can avoid the problem of aliases because when people are arrested, they're fingerprinted. So it really is impossible for people to go commit a crime and then just take a driver's license out in another name. First of all, they can't get the driver's license because of the lack of social, but their fingerprints follow them. And so the courts are used to these aliases, and they have a way to correct the problem for anybody. Aliases are common in the American community as well. And there's a cultural problem here. Many people from different cultures keep their mother's maiden name as their surname in addition to their father's last name. So when I go into court for my clients, oftentimes they'll show when they get pulled over, they'll show the police their passport. They do have identity on them. They do carry their passports because they want to have some form of identification. They'll show the police the passport. Oftentimes the officer will write up a citation just with the first name and the very last surname, as opposed to the middle name, the additional surname, the mother's maiden name. And so the problem is you go into court and probation will have the name under just one way, or as opposed to De Oliveira, they won't have the space. It'll all be one word. So we're creating the problem. We're creating the problem with multiple aliases because we don't have a way to account for these cultural differences. So I go in and the probation won't have an accurate record of their criminal history. They won't have it accurate on their BOP. I'll look at the BOP and the BOP's not accurate because they have all these multiple names. And they're not doing this on purpose. They show their passport. Their passport has all the names. It'll have their accurate name. But our system isn't recording these names accurately. The other problem is oftentimes I have clients that are eligible for a form of immigration relief. We can apply for a green card. The first thing I do is a query. Let's check your criminal history. Nothing will show up on the query. My clients will tell me, I've been into court for twice driving without a license. The query will show up blank. Why? Because the problem with these multiple surnames. So we're creating this identity problem. We're making it hard to find a needle in a haystack. Let's bring these people to light. Let's make the process legal. Not only does this create a safer roadway, but this creates a way to keep track of everybody, know who's here, who isn't here, and from the practical standpoint, have a way to make sure that we can, just have accurate database. Obviously, I can sit here and tell you humanitarian factors. I have many stories. I'd love to share them with you, but I really just wanted to point out something that I don't think has been brought up yet, which is that problem.
Thank you for touching on that issue. I think it was called for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You have a chance to speak. I want to be very quick. You have on your hands a chance to fix this problem. It's on your hands. It's not about illegal or not. But it's easy to find out. If you have a chance to go to the court and spend a day at the court, the only thing you're going to hear is $100 max, $100 max, $100. That's every day. That's every day. I have my own business and I love to hire more. I can't because I'm not able to find anyone to drive. So, gentlemen, it's on your hands to fix this problem. It's a Massachusetts problem, a United States problem. Just fix. Stop at $100. We don't mind to have everybody pay $200, $400, $500 to have a license, but let the immigrants, let the ones who work hard have their license. And by the way, if you want to find the immigrants, it's the guys that leave your newspaper. If you go to the supermarket, who you think cleaned that floor all night? The floor shined because the immigrants spent all night scrub the floor. If you go to the bathroom, it's clean. Who you think put their hands there? If you drink your coffee in the morning, you're going to stop on the Dunkin' Donuts. Who you think spent all night to make your donuts? Thank you.
Thank you. We've reached that point. I see no other names.